The following is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. My goodness. I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm going to say. A fan wants to sue the Shield for Shedeur Sanders being drafted in the 5th round. Oh my goodness. Let me begin the program. You're watching Total Football Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. And I'm back as well to Total Football Talk. Hard-hitting, grind, action, news, and fun, just the way you like it. I am one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the mad scientist and the EP of all EPs. It is great to be with you, but I'm not doing this alone. I have to bring the MVP of this show at definitely the last 2 weeks for sure. He is that man. He also is in charge of Commander's Ground Report, which I'm sure he is happy as a lark right now. He's Mr. Inter Sports Debate. He also is Mr. D. Willie in the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the life of the party, D. Willie, a.k.a. Drew Willingham. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing father-tastic. I don't know what movie this is from, but when the guy got all the accolades and this is all he did, he was the big kid. He was like in the stands and he did this, and this is all he did. But this is what I'm doing right now to show my appreciation for your awesome intro. Thank you for calling me the MVP. As much modesty as I try to display when it comes to that, I'm going to soak it all in today because we have some shenanigans to talk about at its finest. Just like you said in the opening, the Shield is getting punished for something the Shield didn't even do.
No.
Something that somebody else did to himself. But looking forward to taking that all back today because we got a lot to catch up on, brother.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And you are in for a treat because this is episode number 83. That's right, 83. We've been doing this for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and there's no signs of slowing down. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Ready.
All right, we're going to review what took place on the UFL gridiron. Week 6 variety. We're going to preview week 7 a little later. But that is later in the program. But for now, we're going to review week 6. And we're going to start with Friday night's game in St. Louis between the Battlehawks and the Renegades. I think the best way I could describe it is that is a good way to describe it. But look, it was a good game between two teams that were both above 500. One had to fall back to 500. The other improved to 4-2. That would be the Battlehawks, who beat the Renegades 12-6. Man, yeah, this game was ugly. Max Duggan, 7 of 19, 93 yards and a touchdown. You see that I was not I was not BSing when I was saying this was ugly. He also had 10 carries for 49 yards. On defense, Peter Tomopino gave you 2 forced fumbles and 2 sacks. Chris Payton-Jones, he gave you a pick. And at Battlehawks defense, they recovered not 1, not 2, but 3 fumbles. Now, on the other side, the Renegade, I know that's some strong stuff there. For the Renegades, Luis Perez, 16 of 23, 145 yards. He threw a pick, that Chris Payton-Jones pick that I mentioned. He also had 2 carries for 3 yards. Willie Taylor on defense for the Renegades, 2 tackles for losses, a pass defense or pass block, and 2 sacks on the day as well. A name that we haven't heard in a minute, Taco Charlton. A forced fumble and a sack and a half. And the Renegades defense, wonderful performance by them. 7 tackles for losses, 5.5 sacks. Unfortunately, it was in a losing effort. Your thoughts on this game that took place between the Renegades and the Battlehawks?
You know, this game right here, Cole, it was absolutely, like you said, it was bowling shoe ugly. Let's play it again. There's no way around it. The first score wasn't until there was like a minute left in the first half. I mean, the first quarter itself was nothing but missed field goal, punt, fumble. I mean, this was absolutely ugly. I just... If you were watching this game and fell asleep, I wouldn't be mad at you, because this game last week was just absolutely terrible. Looking at it for what it was a game, you know, that was Friday night. It was the 8:00 game. Usually most people are out doing stuff, or if you are home, it's because you're doing something the next day. You're kind of taking it easy, you know? And if you're a fan of football, you're going to watch this game and think, hey, what the expletive am I watching here? Why am I even tuning in to this game? Because they can't even score into the end zone. Yes, there's a score at the end.
Man.
Yes, we have 2 teams that are above 500. As a result, even with the Renegades losing. But the Battlehawks, you know, even though this game was ugly, they found a way to win. That's been the story for this team this year, and the story for this team for several years, even though they haven't done anything huge like playoff time. They are like, they remind me of like the Colts back in the day of the NFL. Like, they're the regular season champs, but when you get to the playoffs, you know, you pre-2005, 2006.
Yeah, I was about to say early 2000s. Yeah, that's how they were.
Yeah, it's like you get to the playoffs. They're the Cowboys of the past 30 years. Okay, you get to the playoffs, you lose the first round. Okay, this is how it is. But you know, when you look at this right here, you know, the big opportunity that the Renegades had to kind of get the momentum in their favor was during the first drive, because in the first drive of the game, they went for 12 plays for 42 yards. They ate up a bunch of time off the clock too, and couldn't do anything with it, and missed a field goal right there at the end. It was a 44-yard attempt, no good. And that right there, when I was watching this, I felt the momentum shift, even though it's not hard to shift in the Battlehawks' favor because of what the Battlehawks have been known for in their existence. Like, they're going to keep things interesting, except right here. You know, this one's really interesting. But, you know, the next drive after that missed field goal, the Battlehawks punt, and then the Renegades, before the end of the first quarter, fumbled the mother, father, and football. I mean, they fumbled this unit. And it was back then, after that, it was a passing back and forth of punts for the next couple drives until they finally got the ball in the end zone with a touchdown, with a missed 2-point conversion. But Max Duggan threw a deep pass to the right for 30 yards to Hakeem Butler, former MVP. You know, good old Hakeem. You remember Hakeem very well. He's made some damage in the league over the past couple of years, but they were unfortunately not lucky to get the 2-point conversion as a result. Battlehawks would get a field goal, though, before the end of the half with 30 seconds left to go up 9-0 at halftime. And 9-0 at halftime, you're thinking, this game's not that interesting, but you're not really thinking that it's over at the same time because the
Right.
Renegades are a team with Luis Perez has been able to put up some fight. When he's on, they're pretty good. But in this game, Luis was not on. He had a very bad QBR of 68.2 throughout the entirety of the game. Barely threw for a little. He threw for 145 yards, couldn't even throw for 150. His completions weren't terrible. He threw for nearly 70% completions, but he did have the turnover with the interception and didn't really do much with his legs on the ground. So when I'm thinking about Luis Perez and his effect on this Renegades team, it all goes through him. It all goes through him.
Oh, yeah. No question.
And Day Hunter, the running back, as well.
Yes.
He had 13 carries on the day for 47 yards, only mustered up 3.6 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done for this team. There's no way that the Renegades have hope. And when they took that first L at the beginning of the year, we were saying then this team doesn't look like the Renegades team of old here. And I was quite concerned, and I'm very concerned now that they've slipped to 3-3 with only 4 games left in the regular season.
Yeah.
It's not the team that we're used to seeing. The Battlehawks are in decent shape with a 4-2 record.
Right.
If you can be 2 games over 500 or more at this point in the season, you're in really good shape for the playoffs.
Right.
And we got some other teams that have that record that we'll talk about more down the road. But when it comes to this game right here, I don't want to place the blame all on one person, but I think I should. And I think that Luis Perez kind of set the tone with this team because Day Hunter, I said he had 13 carries for 47 yards, but he was also the leading receiver with 5 receptions for 41 yards. And we've talked about it before. When you have your running back as your lead receiver or your quarterback as your leading runner, that's not a recipe for success.
No.
It's a recipe for disaster. And luckily, my team in the NFL was able to find a decent balance towards the end to get to the NFC Championship and not fully rely on the quarterback's legs. But that's just an example of you have to be able to adapt to the moment, and the Renegades just haven't quite found it. They're struggling a little bit on that front offensive line. They don't have enough time in the pocket. It looks like Luis is struggling. And I'm very concerned about the remainder of this year. I don't see the Renegades making a playoff push this season.
And that's unfortunate. And I think this was a huge blow for them because if they were to have come out with a W, their chances of actually making the playoffs would have been a lot better. Although, yes, I know 4-2 versus 3-3. Still, I agree with you. I think, and I also agree with you too when you said that the bread was buttered with Luis Perez because that defense could not have done better. Could not have done better. My policy has always been and will always be: if a defense can hold an opposing offense to under 20 points, it's up to the offense to score more than 20 points. And if they don't, that game's on the offense. And this L is on the Renegades offense. And I agree with you. I think Perez should shoulder the bulk of the blame. Yeah, you could put it on D.D. Hunter, but you can't, like you said, because he did all he could. 47 yards rushing, 41 yards receiving. So he did his part. It just wasn't enough, and it's unfortunate.
Do we place blame on Bob Stoops too in this case? I mean, the fact that they fall into 3-3, they didn't really bounce back last year from making it to the XFL championship game the year prior and doing what they did there. So, I mean, I feel similar to them as I do the Brahmas right now. And the Brahmas have a worse record, of course, but Renegades are still slipping.
I would say slightly because I have not been, other than the first game of the year, I have not really been a big fan of what they've decided they want to do on offense. And Stoops knows the game. I mean, he knows that even though he's more a defensive mind, he knows the offense has to run too, and he knows the offense has to click as well. So, yeah, I would throw some of that blame in his direction too, because I think he knows that his offense has to perform a lot better, especially if his defense is going to only allow the Battlehawks to score 12 points. Yeah, that offense needs to step up, and I think Stoops should shoulder some of that load of blame too.
Well, he needs to do it real quick because this turned into a real stupor.
Oh. And then you had to mention Cowboys.
Hey, ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
And I'm going to dice it on up with a little bit of this.
Got me up.
Because you did, brother. You just did.
Oh Lord, the Renegades, they fought to 3-3. Lord have mercy. The Battlehawks, they improved to 4-2, and the fun is just beginning. All right, we will go to Birmingham, where, good Lord, no, I'm not gonna play it. You already know. You already know this was a bull and shoe ugly game. The Stallions had control of this game from kickoff to final gun. 26-3 was the final score over the Brahmas. Goodness gracious. Case Cookus, decent. 16-23, 166 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns on the day. He also had 16 yards on 4 carries. Defensively, you had Ronnie Perkins with 2 tackles for losses and a couple of sacks, and Stephen Gilmore giving us a pick of one Kevin Hogan, who the stats are a little better that he's in, but the mistakes are still there. 17-26, 154 yards, and then Stephen Gilmore pick. He also had 3 carries for 8 yards. Justin Smith, he did have a good receiving day, 5 receptions for 108 yards. You had Lonnie Phelps on defense, 2 tackles for losses, a forced fumble, and 2 sacks. And the Brahmas defense, although they allowed too many points for my liking, 7 tackles for losses and 4 sacks on the day. Your thoughts on the Stallions basically ruling over the Brahmas in this one?
You know, it's... I'm trying to find the right word for this. When you look at it, it might not sound 100% correct, but when you look back at what the showboats were last year, and this will make sense in a second, the quarterback they had leading the team was Case Cookus. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And they had a dumpster fire of a year. Okay.
Yeah, they did.
For Case Cookus to come in here, he was almost my selection for Grand Champ of the Week because of what he did to lead this team to victory, even though it's not really hard to do it over the Brahmas right now.
True.
But because he was 16-23, 69.6% completion percentage, 166 yards, decent for Cookus, 7.2 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, big for him. 119.1 QBR, that was nice. But the thing that's going to expose this team by the time we get to playoffs, if they make it, because they have had some struggles. Those 2 losses were ugly, and especially to the 2 teams that they lost to. When you have a starting running back, your 2 top-tier running backs, Person Jr. with 9 attempts for 32 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown's nice because they were in the red zone, but 9 carries for 32 yards, and then C.J. Marable with 14 carries for 26 yards. It's not going to cut it, man. You cannot have 2 running backs combining for 58 yards on 23 carries. It's not going to work.
Right.
And Cookus added 4 attempts for 16 yards. And, the average there with his 4 yards per run was better than both of his running backs combined on average and separated. Okay. So when I look at that, I don't have high hopes for the Stallions team, especially knowing that they are the back-to-back-to-back defending champions, and how it would have been cool to see a 4-peat in that case. I mean, but it'd be nice to see a new team win to kind of usher a new era in this league. I like that. But Kevin Hogan, former, let me tell you something, brother. He's not related to him, but because he has the last name, the same last name of a character with 24-inch pythons.
Brother.
Let me tell you something. I could die. You know what? No, I'm not even going to do the haircut. It's not even working. No, not doing the U-boat. I got that long enough hair now, but I'm not doing it. Not doing it. But what I will say is this. Kevin Hogan, majority of the game he wasn't bad, but it's sad. This is one of the best performances we've seen out of a Brahmas quarterback and they lost
Mhm.
like this. They have no offensive line this year. They have no direction this year. And this is a team that was just in the UFL
The
championship game.
championship last year. Mm-hmm.
Wade
Yep.
Phillips, they were 0-3. And to save his
Mhm.
legacy, he had to step down. Okay. And they've only mustered up a record of 1-2 since he left. Okay. And the one that they won, you could argue they didn't even deserve to win. So, looking at this for what it is, both teams in this game had no running game. One of the teams has a completely depleted offensive line for one, which is the Browns. The Stallions aren't much better when you consider the fact that these running backs that were running last year, Person Jr. and Marable, were a duo. And you and I were talking about it here, how they were getting things done based on how the offensive line was having their way with the defensive line all of last year and the year before. So, I saw it the year before, but last year was the first year we really covered this league. But looking at it's a completely different team than what we saw. And the only reason why this Stallions team is still relevant today is their defense.
Yes.
Their defense is still punishing other offenses. As much as the Brahmas offensive line is bad and depleted at this current time, it is all a reflection of the way this defense is putting pressure on their offense. And you have to give the credit where it's due, because if it wasn't for the defense doing the things that they're doing, forcing the fumbles, this game would not have turned out the way it was. It would have been a lot closer and lower of a score, and it would have been ugly because of the offense that we have now on the other side. And the Brahmas defense wasn't horrible last year. They weren't bad.
No.
And they're not terrible this year, but when it's the effect that we've seen it with other teams in other leagues. When you have a one side of the equation, which offenses and defenses, the two are stronger effects on the game and carry more weight and more momentum on the game than special teams.
That's correct.
If you have one that's lacking and is absolutely terrible, eventually the other side isn't going to try as hard.
Yeah.
So that's what I see out of the Brahmas this year. You got one side that's really depleted, and the other side is just like, to hell with it. I don't even want to put in all the effort. That's just what I see when I watch the game.
And it's understandable, because I think that's what we're witnessing. Because when you see that sighting for the Brahmas, it's the offense. When you see the offense just be moribund, just be horrible, you're going to put in less effort. And that's human nature. It's not even I want to spite the offense. It's just human nature. It's like, all right, so here we go again. You know, the offense turned the ball over. The offense is getting us out here on 3 and outs. The offense is not executing. It's not even putting the ball in the opponent's territory so we can get enough field goal opportunities. They're not doing enough to put points on the board. And you get defenses pressing because, okay, well, fine, we probably have to put up points ourselves. We might have to do a pick six. We might have to do a fumble recovery for a touchdown. And they try way too hard, and also that results in catastrophic results. And it's unfortunate for the Brahmas. And as for your point about the Stallions, I could not agree more. In fact, that's exactly what I was hoping you was going to say that, because if you didn't, I was going to say it. Because I was going to say last year, I remember that offensive line was mauling other defensive lines. And the running game, to me, along with really the whole defensive unit for the Stallions, that was the strength of the team. It was like you couldn't stop the run, and you couldn't score too much on that Stallions defense. And the Stallions defense is what remains, but that offensive line is not what it is, and the running backs can't get started. And that can be a huge problem. And I agree with you. Going down the line, if they were to meet up against a good team in the playoffs, I don't like the chances at all. But we might see them in the playoffs. They're in good shape in that regard. They improved to 4-2. Meanwhile, for the Brahmas, 1-5. Oof. And before we go on, Snowman, he says, hey, Snowman Chicken In, it's good to see you, brother. It's good to make you laugh last week.
I reached out to Snowman and shared him the take that You know the take I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it fully away since it, we're gonna have a little fun later on in this show.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure he agree with you on said take.
yes, he did.
And the defending NFL champ, Eagles fan Dante Hill, he says, "What's up, guys? I hope everything's good with you. I hope you liked how the Eagles looked at the White House last week."
Well, Dante was a gentleman and a scholar. He was here last week and was providing some great stuff here within the show. So shout out to Dante.
Not surprised. He knows his football. He definitely knows his Eagles very well. He knows his football. So I'm not surprised. And we definitely appreciate you, brother. You are a valued fan. We love you, brother. I'm glad that you're here. Hope everything's good with you and your world. Now on to this. Now the DC Defenders were rolling into week 5, and now they started to stub their toe, and they stubbed their toe even further. They went into Detroit to match up wits against the Panthers and got smacked. 38-14 was the final score. The Panthers had their way with the Defenders. Bryce Perkins, 13 of 18, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 9 carries for 76 yards and a rushing touchdown. Great performance from him. Toatawa, great performance from him too. 19 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. The Panthers offense, they were impressive. They grounded out 213 yards on the ground. Beautiful job from that offensive line. Probably one of the best performances from an offensive line in the UFL season thus far. Frank Ginda on the defensive end for the Panthers, 7 solo tackles and a tackle for loss. And then we get to the Defenders, Jordan Ta'amu. Well, at least the completion percentage is a little better, 19 to 36. The yard total is even high too, 259 yards. He did throw for a couple of touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 17 yards. Unfortunately, that was not enough. Chris Rowland, he was the number 1 target for Ta'amu. 9 receptions, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Inconspicuous in their absence, the stout Defenders defense wasn't so stout here. Your thoughts on this game as the Panthers literally had their way with the Defenders?
Woo! It was kind of a
surprise, motherfucker.
I mean, this game right here was just as bad as the topic that we were talking about last week. I mean, for a good portion of the show, Dante, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because this was just downright busted for bumping uglies unethically. It's what it felt like. It really felt like we were back to that again.
Oh, my gosh. No.
Because it was so bad, man. It was so bad. But right here, when you look at the game in itself, I mean, you got the Defenders who come in here. And this team, they had a lot of hype coming into this game because they were 4-1. All right. And their defense, their offense, their special teams. This is the one team in the league that we've been able to look at this year and say they've been really good on all 3 phases of the game. They really have.
Right.
Right. So looking at that for what it is, I mean, you got to be happy when you have a Stallions. I mean, not a Stallions team, but when you have a Panthers team that comes in here who just kind of struggled a little bit. I mean, they started the year out hot, but they've kind of struggled a little bit these past few weeks. And looking at that, and I was kind of hard on them last week. I didn't think they had a chance against the Defenders this week, even though the Defenders were on the road and this was at Ford Field. Okay. I did not have any hope. But as you look at the game throughout, the Panthers were leading at the end of the first quarter. The first quarter was kind of dismal because the Defenders ate up a good amount of time, but didn't do anything with it. They didn't score. They ended up having a turnover on downs, a 4th and 1. They tried to run for it, and they gave it up. to the Panthers, which kind of set the tone, in my opinion, for the rest of the game. This is the way it went. Like we talked about the Renegades and Battlehawks, how that first drive kind of set the tone. This is how I felt here, because the next drive between both teams in the first quarter, there was only one drive apiece, and both teams put up combined 23 plays. Okay, so 23 plays was all it was for the first quarter. 12 plays by the defenders, 11 by the Panthers. It was 7-0 at the end because they were able to score a touchdown. They went 95 yards on 11 plays, and Toa got a rush up the middle for 1 yard in the end zone, in the red zone, and they got the 1-point conversion to go up 7-0. Then the defenders would score on the next drive, but missed the extra point, and that was literally the highlight of the first half for the defenders, because it would be punt after punt after punt. But the Panthers would score a field goal. They would score another touchdown. They would be up 17-6 at the end of this half. And if you stopped watching this game after that, you didn't really miss too much, because it was just the Panthers beating them down. Yes, the defenders got another lowly touchdown in the third quarter, but it was still all Panthers throughout the rest of the second half. Ta'amu has got to step it up, because even though he did decent, he threw for 260 yards nearly, threw 2 touchdowns, didn't throw any interceptions, ran for another 17, had a QBR of 94. It wasn't horrible.
No. But I'm not liking that completion rating, though. Percentage, though.
No, barely over 50% completion percentage.
Yeah.
Another team that we'll talk about here with the defenders having struggles with the running game. Because even though Jackson put up 47 yards on 10 attempts, 4.7 yards, it's not terrible in comparison to what we were talking about with other teams earlier, but it's not championship football. You know, it's not championship caliber. A championship team can run the ball, not necessarily pass the ball. If you have a quarterback that's throwing 30, 40 passes a game, and your running attack can't even muster up 75 yards, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, like what? This is what it looks like. Your highlight of your day was not Ta'amu. It was Chris Rowland, your receiver, who put up 140 receiving yards on the day. And if it wasn't for that, you would have got blanked. I feel like it's just what it. Because I mean, he put up 144 yards on 9 receptions and a touchdown, averages 16 yards per catch. That's huge. You literally carried your offense that day when I look at that. Yeah. But when you look at the tape, it was more so the Panthers, who have had a strong defense. We've talked about the Nakua combination with a Nakua on offense at receiver, a Nakua on defense. You know, Samson and Kai both being on that team for multiple years. There's chemistry there. There's chemistry on the offense. There's chemistry on the defense. And this defense beat down the defenders in this game. When you look at what the defenders did, you know, against the Panthers defense, you got Genda going in there with double-digit tackles, 11 tackles, 7 of them solo. When you have 7 solo tackles in a game, you are punishing that other offense, okay? That offensive line couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
What were they doing?
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. I would love the defenders a lot, for the exception of 2 things. Ta'amu's efficiency, because it has to be better, and the fact that I want them to run the ball, because they have a defense to me that is championship caliber. You wouldn't think it in this game, but they do when they get the proper time to be on the bench, and their offense is executing the way they should, and they have the motivation to be out there to actually defend something. But when, like you said, when you get these 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out, you end every offensive possession in punts. That's not motivational, even for a stout defense like the defenders. But you're not going to help the team with the porous running game. And even though Ta'amu didn't throw a pick in this one, the inefficient quarterback play. But both teams are 4-2. The defenders dropped to 4-2. The Panthers improved to 4-2. And this was actually to me, I think this is the Panthers' best performance Obviously, this is the defender's worst of the year thus far.
The Panthers had it going on offense with their
Mhm.
quarterback and their running back. I mean,
Yeah.
Bryce Perkins was the MVP of this game when you
Mhm.
look at it. Yeah, he didn't throw for
Steady
200
game.
yards. He threw for less yards than Jamu, but he had a better completion percentage at 72, 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown also. He had 9 carries for 76 yards, which to me, when you have a quarterback who's just under 200 passing yards, but then has like almost 100 rushing yards, it kind of counterbalances not being able to hit 200 passing yards. So looking at that, you have a running back who carries the ball 19 times for 94 yards, averaging almost 5 yards a carry, and a touchdown with a long of 21. That's big. Bryce Perkins, your quarterback, 9 carries for 76 yards, averaging 8.4 and a touchdown with a long of the 31. That's big. But the fact that Perkins had 3 contributed touchdowns in this game was huge. The one thing I'm concerned about with the Panthers is this. You have got to hold on to the damn football.
Oh,
And I
cool.
will say it just like
That's
that
non-negotiable.
because you fumbled it twice, okay?
That's non-negotiable.
Cole Hikatini and Bryce Perkins himself, as much as I want to put the praise on Bryce Perkins today, he fumbled the ball. So the fact that the defenders couldn't capitalize on 2 fumbles is even a bigger statement considering the fact they came into this game 4-1. They got exposed by the Panthers, but the Panthers have to hold on to the ball. That's the only negative thing I can say about the Panthers in this game is about the fumbles. You got to protect the football if you want to protect the opportunity to win a UFL championship.
I think they're on the right path, but I agree with you. To strengthen their chances, I think they do have to take care of the ball better too. And yeah, you're right. They've been having issues protecting the ball. But hopefully it will be better for them, and they could use this as a springboard to bigger and better performances. Definitely on offense. Defense actually did pretty well too, but the offense, that running game has to be not necessarily they gain 213 yards on the ground every week, but at least be intentional to chew up yardage on the ground, because I think there is some things to be had, and I think that Panthers offensive line has said we can be the big uglies if you trust us to be, and we can take care of business. And if they can, like you said, hold on to the ball, they can be a problem, but they got to hold on to the ball. Victor Lock, VLock 83, or let me see if I can find it. I can do it. Oh no, I don't have to do it. He says, "Ow! What is good in the TFT tribe? The Grandmaster Sensei Drew Willingham and the EP of EP's Cole Johnson." He also goes on to say, also my sides are still healing from being split open from the annual end of season service at the city. Yes. I'm glad that you were entertained from the annual end of season service. That was funny. And an esteemed guest, our brother Chris Bass. He says, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Great to see you both. It is great to hear you say that it's good to see us both. It's even better to see you, my friend. I'm glad to see you. And for those who really want to have a wonderful program where you get entertained and you learn a lot, join his wonderful program, Baseline. You can catch it on his Facebook channel and also his YouTube channel, which is the Chris Bass channel. Every Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Wonderful guy, wonderful content, better human being. Love you, my brother.
Gotta get him on here and talk about some stupid university.
Oh gosh. Oh, and he knows his football. I mean, he knows his football very well.
But I just want to see who all he would induct or bring into stupid university.
Stupid university
from who we're talking about. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the person who's suing the Shield is going to be the top of his list. I'm
gosh.
He's got it. We've got to get his take on this.
I'm sure of it too. Say Diggy, he does his traditional vintage greeting of good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. And from where you are, I'll probably have to say good evening to you, Mr. Diggy. Six says, look, I'm glad I was raised Orthodox. The city fifth service was hilarious. Thank you, sir. Thank you. But again, back to the regular schedule programming already in progress. The Defenders, they fall to 4-2. The Panthers, they improved to 4-2. Both are in the running for playoff positioning. We'll see how that goes as the season continues and progresses. And then we get to the game of the week, which involves, and I know it's strange to have a 1-4 team be part of this, but the Memphis Showboats at 1-4 against the 2-3 Houston Roughnecks. This game actually was pretty entertaining. It actually was up and down. It actually was nip and tuck. Now, was it spectacular in terms of either offense stood out or defense stood out? Not necessarily, but each had their role and each played their role. But the Roughnecks eke out a 2-1-20 victory over the Showboats. Jalen McClendon, 20 of 28, 149 yards, 149 yards and a touchdown. He also has 5 carries for 4 yards. I think the Roughnecks may have found their quarterback. Because if he keeps playing like this, I like their chances better. Maybe not playoffs, but at least better play. JT Tyler on defense for the Roughnecks, 6 total tackles and a tackle for loss. Marvin Moody with also 6 total tackles of his own. And Armani Marsh with a pick of Dresser Wynn. Well, actually had a pretty good performance, really. Did have a mistake. I mentioned that INT of Armani Marsh, but he also threw of 22 of 34 for 207 yards and a touchdown to go along with that interception. He also had a rushing touchdown on 3 carries and 16 yards. All right, your thoughts on this game between the Showboats and the Roughnecks in Houston?
Wow, Cole, the Roughnecks have won 3 straight games.
Yeah.
Which is huge. After starting the year 0-3, and you and I throwing a bunch of shade at them for doing so, and for the way that they have played over the years since the existence of these leagues. We threw a lot of shade, and we have been corrected over the past 3 weeks with the fact that they have found ways to win the game. And, you spoke of Dresser Wynn, who had a decent game even in the Showboats showing. He led them to their first win last week and was my grand champ of the week last week for episode 82. Right. So with that, I want to throw a little praise at him, because even though he lost the game here, he had some decent stats, but that turnover, the interception is the difference maker here. And it was very costly, because his numbers, when you compare between him and Jalen McClendon, he did better. Slightly better. If you take away that interception, even carried the ball 3 times for 16 yards. McClendon couldn't get things done on the ground with his legs. But McClendon was good, completing the ball 20 of 28 times for 71.4% completion and a 95.7% QBR. Dresser wins 78.9 because of that turnover. But again, 207 yards on 22 completions out of 34 attempts, 64.7% completion percentage. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's better than some of these other quarterbacks we talked about earlier. And EJ Perry, who started this year out, and they were 0-4 before they got their first win, got into the game with a couple passes, only completed 1 for 6 yards, does not deserve to play anymore. Because what Dresser Wynn is doing for this team, because last week, again, against the Birmingham Stallions of all teams, he led them to a win in overtime. Okay? So remember what Dresser Wynn did last week? He threw for 235 yards, had a touchdown, 96.2% completed, 96.2 QBR. But when you can do that against the Stallions and serve them their second loss of the season, when they were 3-2 and they were on the edge of their seats coming into this week, worried about what was going to be, and then the Stallions were able to come back because of who they played, of course. But this team in the Showboats, that game against the Stallions got them pumped up to be able to do what they did against the Roughnecks. Because even though the record says these teams are bad right now, or on the come up, or at least for the Roughnecks are on the come up. The Showboats record, if you don't know this league or watch the football games, you would think they were terrible. But watching them each and every week,
terrible.
They are improving each and every week. They are getting better. They are a team that, yes, is 1-5, but they could easily be 3-3 right now, like the Roughnecks, based on how they played.
Yeah.
So this game, I am happy that you picked this as the game of the week, because before even seeing the slate, that was the one thing. I am, what is it, out of the past, since I started putting on the graphic the game of the week and the upset of the week, I think this past like 4 weeks, I'm like 6 for 8 for guessing what you're going to put on there as on the slate. So we're like really close for guessing it. So this week when I had that on there, I was like, yes, I guessed it. I was like, you got to pick this one, because we hadn't even had a chance to talk yet, because the way the weeks go and everything. I see it this morning and I'm like, yes, because you could have also picked, the Panthers beating the Defenders because they're two good teams, even though it was a lot of score. There's an argument for it.
There is.
But when it comes to what this is the obvious, so at the same time, I don't know. Because 20-21 of a score in that close against two teams that haven't been competitive or for the majority of the time that you and I have covered this league.
Yeah.
It's just great to be able to change things up and not have them on the shade side that we're throwing, but on the praise side that we're showing. So with that, I was happy for us to be on the same page for this. For the key players, even though in the loss, I got to say it's Dresser Wynn, Jalen McClendon, like the quarterback like we talked about, but also Justin Hall, the receiver for the Roughnecks, 6 receptions for 38 yards and a touchdown. That was big. And Wes Hills, who had a total of 75 yards as the running back combined between receiving and rushing. That's the keys to how this Roughnecks team won the game. And the defenses weren't dominant, but they were keeping up. I mean, you give up 20 points, it's a lot, but you didn't give up 30 and 40 like we've seen you give up to some good teams before. So this was a very competitive game. And if the UFL has a strong future, I think within the next few years, we could see these teams at the top of the league.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that was you climbed on my head, because part of the reason why I wanted to pick this as game of the week as well, besides the close score, was I did witness that, even though of course I did catch your wonderful broadcast last week. I was privy to how the Showboats hung in there, and actually hung an L on the Stallions. I was like, okay, so this team, and they showed me fight, because when these same two teams played in Memphis, that was close too. So I was like, okay, so this team is showing some fight. Talking about in the Showboats, they're showing some fight. And then when I saw this game, I was like, okay, all they need is to have a break go their way in these games, or make one less mistake, and they're going to be on the winning side more than they're on the losing side now. But yes, I love their effort. I love what this team is doing. They're rallying, and they've had a lot of turnover. And they're battling, they're scrapping, they're showing that they have a lot of mettle. And it's unfortunate that they came in on the short end this week, and they dropped 1-5. But they're showing fight, and I love that. And I also love the fact that the Roughnecks, who could have mailed it in after being 0-3, now they are on the doorstep to possibly a playoff spot at 3-3. But I think they'll be the first to tell you their road is a little bit on the tough side too. But they do not look like the team from 4 and 5 and 6 weeks ago. And that gives me hope. I'm loving what I'm seeing for the Roughnecks now. They improved to 3-3, and man, I think if these two cores can stay together, in about a couple of years, I think we'll be talking about them in a much more positive light, much more often. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, because you just got to keep it together, because you see when players shift to different teams, the chemistry can get either deflated a little bit or it can get improved because you got different mindsets in the locker room. And especially when we get to the NFL talk, where we talk about, a team that recently just traded a receiver to prevent like the diva, overtaking of a locker room.
Right.
It makes sense when you're making some shuffling of pieces happen amongst these players throughout the league. So we'll see how things continue on throughout the next couple of years. But if this is a sign of things to come for improvement for these two teams, I'm excited about it because I get more enjoyment covering a team that's improving or continually playing great than a team like, oh no, we gotta talk about them again.
Right.
Like nobody wants to talk about the negative, but some people do. I like having fun and talking about the positive. You too.
Yeah, totally understand that. We're on the same page there. That is this week's game of the week, and that also concludes opening drive. Oh, and for those who enjoyed the annual end of year service, it was great now to no longer talk about
Okay.
Sorry,
I gotta go back. I gotta go back and see it. I have not seen it yet. Is this on Snowman?
Yeah, it's on Snowman.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta go back and see it. My apologies, Snowman. I was not privy to it. But we talked briefly in the green room. I've had an interesting week and past couple weeks, but the fact that we still have this and you're here is awesome. But let me know the day when we're done with this show, and I will go back and listen to it tonight because anything with you doing with the City Fifth is amazing. Okay. It's not the first rodeo and it won't be the last, but I gotta keep up the speed with it. So I feel like a bad friend for not watching it live, but the schedule prevented it. But I will go back and watch the replay. I can promise you that.
I was like, your schedule, you'd be either asleep or about to wake up. So it's understandable.
Bro, I'm just glad we are here today. Like you and I are here. We are able to still make it happen. But yes, you feel my pain. But the best part about it is there are replays, and I can go back and still show the support. So love you guys, and I know without even watching it yet that it's $1 million, and it deserves to be $1 million. It's a heart of gold, a pot of gold, all types of gold, and it's from you guys. I'm going to go back and watch.
Thank you, sir. Well, that concludes opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips right at 42, 989 on 2. Ready?
But we're not done. No. In fact, I think it's time for this. Where are my dogs at? That's right. It is time to award our grand champ of this week. And for Drew, it is his turn to unveil his. Sir?
Well, a random moment of shenanery before I do. I just got to say, I love barking each and every week when we do the Grand Champ segment because it is a great segment. And I have a lot of fun with it because each and every week we get to choose our MVP of the past week, no matter whichever it was in NFL, UFL, CFL. And in this week, I have my choice that I was bouncing back and forth between Case Cookus and this man, but I had to give it to this man because of what he meant to this game. And, the Defenders were arguably the best team in the UFL when we came into this week because of what they've done on offense, on defense, special teams, all three phases. Don't let the one loss fool you until this week. But when the Panthers, host this, they host this team, we thought, or at least I did last week, I thought that the Defenders were going to come in and take the big old fat old stick. I thought that the Panthers would take it and get served that by the away team. And I was wrong because Bryce Perkins showed us how dominant he can be. And he has had flashes in the past. In college, he did it. And he did it here in this game. And he's done it over the past couple of years for this team. But I feel like this is the Panthers' year if they can keep this up, because Bryce Perkins, 13 of 18 on the day, 188 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns, a QBR of 142.8. I repeat that again, even though you can see it, 142.8 QBR. How often do we see that, Cole? Not often at all.
No.
And on top of that, the icing on the cake, 9 rushes for 76 yards and a rushing touchdown. You led the Panthers to a big win over the best team in the UFL. I can't emphasize that enough. Even though the Defenders were the road team, they still had the momentum on their side. And Bryce Perkins served him that big old fat old stinking nail. And I got to give him my pick for the dough of the week.
Wonderful choice. I was hoping that's who he was going to pick. Yeah, and he deserves that for sure. And your comments about him in opening drive were correct. I look at that Panthers W, and I make him the person who was the key figure in having that W happen for them. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Good choice. Bryce Perkins deserves it for sure.
Thank you, sir. I hope he can keep it up, because it's nice to see another team out of Detroit win.
It is. It truly is. And 2 people who don't even live in Detroit, and we have that take.
Absolutely.
So who is my choice for Grand Champion of the Week? Well, I decided not to go with a player. I actually decided to go with a league, and I'm actually going to go with the UFL. Yeah. The reason why I'm going for this with them, they did not have a collective bargaining agreement before this season began, and they were in talks and negotiations. And this past week, before week 7, they actually settled on an agreement in place, and they did it during the season. And that is very difficult. Normally, you would like to do these things in the off season, and doing it during the season. Normally, tensions are tighter, and normally you have people's attention spans not all the way there. But this just goes to show the professionalism of both the ownership group and the labor association that is affiliated with the players for the UFL. Now, the things that are in this new collective bargaining agreement highlight now, this will extend all the way to the end of the 2026 season. It is retroactive. This began at the start of the 2025 season. So basically the contract began in earnest March 28th. So you have that. You have an annual raise for the players of about $7,000 of those who actually play all 10 games. You have a roster increase from 42 to 43 during the regular season, and during training camp, 58 to 64. You also have player bonuses as well, of $500 for player of the week, $5,000 for players of the year, $7,500 for league MVP, and $5,000 for players who win the UFL championship. And also along with it, a maximum of 2 padded practices a week, agreement that players can wear whatever cleats they would prefer, and a creation of labor management committee that will meet 3 times a year. And along with it as well, year-round health care. Now, I know you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, Cole, this is football. What does that matter? It matters because wherever you work, I don't care what line of business you're in. For my brother, he's in IT. I'm in journalism. Whenever you can get some modicum of security in the way of, okay, how much time I can get off a year, how much are you going to pay into my health insurance, how are you going to pay into a housing stipend, which that is what also the players will get as well. However you can have in terms of what can alleviate whatever you can think of, if you participate in something like this, helps. It helps your performance, because The less you think about in practice on the field, the better the player will perform. And the owners understand that, and they were in lockstep with the players, and I love that. I'm also highlighting this as well because let me see if I could put this in a wonderful uh, manner. The NFL can stand to learn from this. In fact, the NFL labor union, I'm on record as saying I said it here, and I'll keep saying it. It is the weakest union in all of professional sports, and now you have a minor league system. I know that's how you regard UFL, that actually can collectively bargain better than you can. So take note with that. But UFL, pat yourself on the back. Ownership group, the players that represent the player, the reps that represent the players, and the players who represent the other players. Congratulate yourselves because you all were professionals. You all were grown men. You got at the table. You said what you needed. You listened to the other side, and you came to an agreement, like how men are supposed to do it. So congratulations. That is how you do it. And I'm proud of this league.
That's absolutely huge. Like that, I'm glad you covered that for the Grand Champ of the Week, because you and I talked about this at the very beginning of this season, how they were starting the year without a collective bargaining agreement.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't have this answer yet, and there was concern there. Like, their potential, we didn't think they would go on strike or anything, but it's still the possibility that it could happen. When you don't have any type of collective bargaining agreements, anything that has to deal with money and protection of the player, and year-round insurance is huge because you get injured in December or January, but your injury lasts for 6 or 12 months, but your contract ended in March. Like this gives you better coverage for lengthier injuries that it's not. People were getting, screwed when it comes to medical bills. Like, they make millions of dollars, but when then you run out of insurance, run out of a coverage, and you're only a third of the way through or a quarter of the way through the healing process, and you don't have insurance, you got to pay for it somehow. And that's why a lot of these players were going broke, not just with mismanagement of funds, but they were getting their wages garnished because the big time, pharma companies know out there, this is a professional athlete. They can garnish his wages, which not necessarily the future ones, but they can even get tabs on your bank account somehow because they know how much you make or how much you've made, and they're going to get it before you spend it. So if that's the case, I can definitely see where this is big for the future for these players, because even though they're not making that kind of money, just because they're not making the $50 million a year doesn't mean they're not getting the same medical bills that those who get injured in the NFL do. So they're going to have less money to cover the bills if that happens. So this is huge that you have this type of insurance coverage. That's my favorite part of this collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me was the hugest one for me. I was like, oh, yeah. That, if you want to know what made me want to make the league the grand champ, it was that, right? It was that benefit right there. I was like, oh, that is huge. Health insurance coverage all year round. Oh man, okay. Yeah. So this was a big W, and I'll even throw it to the WNBA. I hope you ladies can understand how important it is to have great representation for you, and how you're supposed to come to the table with owners and saying that you demand to have something that is worth the sacrifice that you put forth, in your case on the court, and these players' cases here on the field. And we want to see you respect that, and hopefully you can. And with this collective bargaining agreement, the ownership group of these players do respect what these players do. And I love it. I love it. I love it for the players. I love it for the ownership group. And I love it for professional sports because they have this model here. You can have this happen, and you still can make money, and you still can make the players happy. It could be a win-win if you do the situation right. Man. Well, so out there, throughout the whole landscape of football. Tell us, who's your grand champ? We would love to know. Oh, that bark is hilarious.
Had thrown in there one more time.
No, I'm glad you did. Gosh. All right, it is now time for the Grind Scoop. This is where, of course, we get a chance to talk about the ups, the downs, the ins and the outs of all things professional football. And first up, the Cowboys decided to go out into the free agent market or trading market and pick up a player. And this happens to be former Steelers wide receiver George Pickens. So this trade has been finalized, and it would send Pickens to Dallas in exchange for draft considerations. The Cowboys are sending a third-round draft pick in next year's draft and a fifth-round draft pick in the 2027 draft. We'll talk about that draft in a little while. To the Steelers in exchange for Pickens, who averaged 15.3 yards on 59 receptions last year. And they also receive a sixth-round draft pick for next year. The deal gives Dallas a second high-profile receiver to go along with CeeDee Lamb on the team that finished 11th in NFL in passing offense last year under Dak Prescott for part of that year. Now, Pickens is entering his fourth season and will be eligible for a contract extension at the conclusion of the 2025 season with his rookie deal expiring. Now, my question to you about this, I don't know what you want to call it. How could this move improve the Cowboys?
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Story is this. This is not going to improve the Cowboys, in my opinion. Now, there's people out there who are drinking the Kool-Aid who think that this team, with this trade, just got themselves not only into the playoffs, but into the NFC Championship. I have heard that this week, and we gotta pause that.
Delete!
You think that with Dak and his little hip thrusting thing that he does out there for his warm-ups, and CeeDee Lamb, who is a diva, okay? And then you have George Pickens now, who's another diva, who they were also talking about, too. There was one of two things they were saying since the trade for DK Metcalf, that they finally got their 1-2 punch, or the two divas were going to kill the locker room. Well, when you have CeeDee Lamb, who he might not be as much of an openly displayed diva, but how many number one receivers do you know out there with the portfolios they have that aren't a little bit of a diva? Okay. George Pickens is definitely a diva, and he's in a contract situation where he's got 1 year left on the current deal. So he's playing for his contract. If he's not getting his catches and getting his numbers, and CD is, that's a recipe for disaster. Okay. I remember this situation very similar back to like when T.O. was with the Eagles back in the mid-2000s. And if the ball isn't going his way or things aren't going his way, one person can take down the entire locker room. So I hope that this trade goes as smooth as the Cowboys want to. But when you have someone known as Giraffe, you like to say, I can't do this good as you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Giraffe over there for the Cowboys, okay? When it comes to the GM moves over there for the Cowboys, they still need to
Stop it. Get some help.
I mean, is that a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
I don't think so, because the amount of moves this guy has made in the past 30 years, and what have they done? They've missed 29 consecutive, NFC championship situations where they won't make it. They haven't made the NFC championship game in 29 years, potentially 30 years with this upcoming season. And Gerald was telling us months ago that he was going to be making some big moves this offseason, whether before the draft, after the draft, or even right then, was basically how he had described it. Well, he did something that we usually don't see, and that's a trade after the draft. We usually don't see a trade like this in May. It's usually done before the draft, so that way that current year's draft compensation is included. Maybe, and I've not said about this about Gerald yet, and I want to save some things for later, if you know what I'm saying. But we could say a couple of years from now that it could be a genius move, because if there's potentially better draft options next year and the year after, which he's not going to get his hands on Arch Manning. Like, if you're making these moves now, you're not planning to be the worst to get the number 1 pick in 2027, I think will be when Arch Manning will more likely come out. You're not going to get that draft pick with these type of moves over the next 2 years. So do you really think with this move right here, how it can improve the Cowboys? I'm going to ask the people in the chat this question before I give my final take on this part. But improving the Cowboys with number 14, the diva himself, with CD Lamb over there, do you really think that this is cohesive? That this can exist? This can coexist amongst each other? I don't think so. Who's running the ball? Who is running the ball over there? Who's protecting it? I sure as hell I hope it's not Zeke. Don't even try to sneak him back in July, because you have nothing to balance out that offense, in my opinion, to give even options for a play action pass for either one of those two to get open. So I don't think that this improves the Cowboys one bit. You didn't give up too much for him. The 3rd round pick was pretty much a compensatory pick that the Steelers would have got anyway if they couldn't re-sign him when he hit free agency. In the 5th round pick, you gave him for the final year. So for the next year, so they get a 2026 3rd rounder and a 2027 5th rounder, if I remember that correctly. Is that spot on with that?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't think that there was much in this draft that you could really get back, so you didn't want to trade for it, or you didn't want to give up they didn't want to waste it this year, is basically what the Steelers were saying for the compensation back for him.
Basically.
So that's why they pushed it till after the draft. They didn't want this year's picks, because apparently they didn't like what the Cowboys had for the picks this year, was basically where I was getting at earlier. So I think that in the long run, the Steelers are going to win this. They're going to find a way to do something with that 3rd round pick. I could be wrong, but I just don't think that if Pickens does get to form the way everybody wants him to, and continues on with some of the flashes we've seen, it could be with another team and not even with the Cowboys, because unless I'm wrong, unless I slept through it, did he sign an extension or anything with the Cowboys yet, or is he still under that 1 year remainder of that contract?
No, he's still under his rookie deal. He has to sign his extension yet.
So this is a gamble for them. So if things don't go right this year, and if I were Pickens, I would not sign that 4 or 5 whatever year extension he's going to get for the big money. I would not sign that until after this year. I would take the gamble even more, because if the Cowboys fall on their face like they have over the past few years and over the past 29, why would you want to take the chance of being with an organization that's proved for 3 decades much dysfunction in the front office that can't build a winning team? So to me, I don't think this improves the Cowboys, because I think that by the end of this year, unless they prove us all wrong who've been throwing shade, and we've seen teams like my team flip it from upside down to positivity. It's possible, but the same owner's there, the same person calling the shots is there. I don't think this improves the Cowboys, because there has been no big move, especially when you look back to the moves they've made for primetime receivers over the last 30 years, and they've made a few. They've never panned out, because they've never gotten back to the NFC Championship since the mid-90s. So am I wrong for feeling this way? I don't, because I just don't think it improves them whatsoever.
Okay, I'll say it. Why are you going after wide receivers? I thought the goal with offenses was balance. You already have a diva wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. You already have that lot. Why would you want to have another one? And I heard CeeDee Lamb, he he was asked about this, and of course he was sort of backing the play of Pickens, saying, "quote Well, you can't double both of us." Close quote. You want to bet? You probably both can be doubled, and defenses probably still can stop you because it's like what you and what one Mr. Ryan McCarthy. Good afternoon to you, sir. In fact, I'll say this right now. He said, "Happy Friday to the TFT Tribal Chiefs." He says, "Throw them ones up because we the ones." Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He said the Cowboys still need a running back, and that is my issue. Cowboys still need a running back, and the Cowboys still need more and better protection on the offensive line to boot.
We're all there. We're all there.
Yeah, and I know that. Yeah, because I know that their first round draft pick this year was on offensive lineman, but this team cannot go anywhere unless the balance is there. And oh, by the way, Dak Prescott's coming back off of an injury that ended his season last year prematurely. So you're about to see a decline with him. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to crap on the Cowboys. I'm saying this because he's on the wrong side of 30, and two, he's been in the league now a decade. In fact, this will be year number 10. So he has taken his fair share of shots now. And your take of trying to position themselves in 2 years to get Arch Manning, that would be interesting.
No. I said they it's not like the picks that they got back. It wouldn't. Like the picks that the Steelers got back, they will not be able to get Arch Manning with it. So
no.
And moving back from this draft, like they just didn't believe that the Cowboys had enough, compensation within this draft to make it worthwhile. So they waited because there's better options later. Yeah. But you, me, McCoffey, we're all on the same page with this whole running back situation. Because I said it earlier, they don't have a mixture to even get the offense flowing for those receivers to get open to make things happen. And they're going to get upset and they're going to cry like snowflakes. And I guarantee it this upcoming season that half of our Snowflake of the Week picks are going to be dealing with these two receivers or somebody from the Cowboys in general, or Gerald 4 or 5 more times, because we are not going to like what we're seeing. And it starts today with this episode.
No, I don't think we are. It's just a simple case of you're not making this team better. You're making them worse, and you're not helping your quarterback as you're making him worse in the process. But hey, who are we, Gerald? I mean, I'll be glad in January when I get a chance to say 30 years and counting Cowboys fan. I'll be glad to say that because unfortunately with the moves that you're making, you're not touching the NFC Championship game for the 30th consecutive year. Sorry, Cowboys fan. Your team has to make better decisions and better moves. Getting George Pickens is not it. 6 says, look, it would require the Cowboys getting rid of the root of their problems. Would they even bother to look at the root cause or causes? One of them won't leave. So we know the answer to that question. And yeah, they might need a new QB, but Prescott, he signed a new deal. Let me see, this is May, 8 months ago, that has him getting $60 million a year. But they need a new QB who can march the offense like a general. The key being leadership. And the thing is, Gerald thinks that Mr. Prescott is that leader. That's what he thinks. Ryan says, look, on the flip side, if you're a Steelers fan, what's your thought process with yet another wide receiver being a head case? I'm assuming you're talking about DK Metcalf and getting shipped out of town. Oh, no, it was George Pickens and getting shipped out of town. And now you bring in DK Metcalf, who's just as big of a diva as the aforementioned Pickens. Will he be traded after 1 or 2 seasons? I think in the case of Metcalf, I don't think he's as immature as Pickens is. He does have his diva moments, and if you don't throw him the ball enough, he will let you know about it. But he's a little more mature. So I think you can handle him a little better, and I think Tomlin will be able to handle him better on the field. So I don't think it'll be as big of a problem as with Pickens, because with Pickens, it was going to be a nightmare, and he was going to become even more of one, because I know he felt as though he was the best receiver on that team. All you had to do is ask him. But the comments off the field and his behavior on the field and off the field would tell you otherwise. So I think the Steelers would be better with Metcalf. The problem with Metcalf is who's going to throw him the ball there. That's the bigger question. Of course, those dummies think that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, but I digress. Before we continue, I need a little humor in here. Total Football Talk is brought to you by Peanut Butter and Jealous. Whenever you're feeling a little envy, spread some peanut butter and jealous. Now available in striking strawberry, wicked blackberry, and maniacal wild berries. And thank you, Dante. Look, I'm just speaking my mind and speaking the truth, brother. And I'm glad your son's doing well too, my brother. Oh, 6 says, and Sacred Valley Dairy, all non-dairy milk without the bull or cow. From almond to rice, we got you. Sacred Valley Dairy.
Sick with the gyms as always.
Yes, we appreciate you, Sick. Oh my goodness. But look, to me, with Pickens being a part of the Cowboys, it's more of the same. And if it's going to be more of the same, you're going to get more of the same results, which is going to be none or little. You were 7-10 last year. You'll be lucky if you're 8-9 this year. And I'm not rooting for it. I'm just saying the moves you're making are not making this team better. Just isn't. And no, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I'm not a Cowboys hater either. Now, I'm not quite sure I can say the same thing for my brother here, but he basically spoke the truth. And I agree with him 100%.
Hey, you know it's all in fun, but at the same time, it's facts. And until you show me something different, I have nothing else. I have to stick with my story because you're not proving me wrong. So once you do, I will bend the knee. And I have proven that with other teams before in other sports as well that I've thrown shade at on several different programs, not just here. If they correct me, I will come on the next episode and sit here and say where I was wrong. Okay. We've done it. So and I have no shame in that. But until you prove otherwise, I'm going to throw as much shade as possible. And I have like a golden ticket in my hand that I'm saving till later in the show because there's like a chunk of what I wanted to say when we were talking about. I just couldn't yet, but it'll make sense in a little bit.
Oh, it definitely will. I look forward to it. Ooh, I'm looking forward to it. Now, from the Steelers, the Cowboys, out to Santa Clara or San Francisco, California, as Robert Saleh faced career uncertainty, being axed from the New York Jets sideline as head coach. He knew one thing was certain. If he was going to return to being a defensive coordinator, he'd want to do it with his old team, the 49ers. So after parting ways with the coordinator of theirs, Nick Sorensen, in January, the 49ers quickly locked in on hiring Saleh. And barring another head coaching opportunity, Saleh had a similar idea in mind. And when Saleh didn't land the Jaguars job, the head coaching job, he came back to the 49ers on January 25th, reuniting with Coach Kyle Shanahan and the franchise that gave him his first coordinator opportunity. Now, speaking to Bay Area media for the first time since his return Thursday, Saleh said that his loyalty to the 49ers is a product of not just the chance that they initially provided him in 2017, but also how they stuck by him when his first 2 years as coordinator didn't quite go as planned. And went on to talk about those tough times by saying the following, quote, I have a tremendous amount of respect for this organization. If you think about those first 2 years as the coordinator in 2017, 2018, it wasn't easy, and it could have been very easy for them to move on from me. I'm indebted to this organization, to those men for the rest of my life. They stuck with me, and we made it happen. We did what we needed to do, and the rest is history. I'm excited about the opportunity to get a chance to do it again with them. Close quote. Now, my question to you is the following. Do you think Salah's second stint as defensive coordinator with the 49ers will go better than his head coaching post with the Jets?
Yes, I do, because just the way they were able to gel before. Kyle Shanahan in my opinion, has had some of the best success with as far as his defense as a head coach of the team, because he is offensive minded just like his dad, but his best defense tenure was with Saleh there running the defense. So the fact that he'll be running the defense and not really running a whole team and getting back into what he knows best, I feel like it's going to be best for him, and it's going to be best for the 49ers, who have not had that great of success. They've been struggling defensively. They've been struggling as a whole last year, on all three phases, but they really were struggling defensively since Saleh left, in my opinion. So when you think about that, I think in comparison to what he did with the Jets, things could have gone better over there in New York. A lot of the media twisted some things around, and of course, the whole Captain Ayahuasca situation didn't really help things out too much towards the end of it. But at the end of the day, he's had his most success with the defensive coordinator position as a defensive-minded person. He was able to go to Green Bay last year once he was ousted from New York, and kind of see things as a quality control coach, for a little bit on the side, seeing how things kind of like in a position where you kind of take a step back, and even though you're contributing, you're kind of seeing more from the outside looking in while still being a part of it. In order to have a successful team, this is what you got to do. And the Green Bay Packers are a successful team. So to get the 49ers back on track, he not only takes his experience from New York that he's learned from, hopefully, and he's also taken the experience with the little bit of time that he's with Green Bay towards their playoff run last year when he was brought in. Because it was shortly after he was let go by New York, he was brought into Green Bay, because him and LaFleur, go back. So looking at that for what it is, Saleh, has a really good chance of turning things around. And we've seen other coaches before who were fairly young who didn't really pan out in their first go around as a head coach. But then they go back to what they know best, whether it's as an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, and they kind of get their second chance, not only to resurrect themselves in the position that got them the head coaching position to begin with, but to resurrect themselves as a potential candidate for a head coaching position in the future. So looking at that for what it is, you got to be happy for Robert Saleh for getting this opportunity to go back to work with an organization that he's very familiar with, a team that still has a decent amount of players from his tenure not too long ago that he can still incorporate his system back and should be able to have success. My concern is the offense, especially with Christian McCaffrey and his status, what's going on with that, and how are they going to be able to establish the running game? Because everything that 49ers offense does is ran through its running game. And that's what establishes the flow of most games in football anyway. And for this team, that's what it establishes. So for the defensive side, I think they're going to actually improve with bringing Saleh back. And I think that this is better for him than his opportunity with the Jets and how all that went downhill. He'll be able to resurrect himself. He's still young enough to get an opportunity. He's only 46 years old. I think he has another 2 or 3 good years as a defensive coordinator with the 49ers. By the time he's 50, he'll get another head coaching opportunity again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think Saleh was smart to use this as a reset, as a possibility of, okay, well, let me recalibrate what I do, and let me show you why I am a really good head coaching candidate and what I do best, and doubly go back to where he actually did what he did best. So yeah, and there are some people, as Dante said, they're just better coordinators than head coaches. I agree with you. I'm in that camp with Saleh, but I think he was in an untenable situation. And he could have done better, yes. But I think the front office didn't do him any favors. And Ryan McCarthy agrees with me because he says, blank Woody Johnson. For those who don't know, Woody Johnson's the principal owner of the Jets.
Also agree with him when he says, how do you milk a rice kernel?
Yes, Sick. How do you milk a rice kernel? Oh my gosh. Oh Lord.
That conversation was funny. Yeah, I was trying, I was in the middle of my take and that stuff was popping up. I was trying to compose myself. We were talking about, but we did great. It was fun.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're on the same page with Salah.
Yeah, we are.
There's going to be people out there that disagree, especially people who are fans of New York, because they probably don't want to see him. I mean, they're probably not McCarthy. I mean, he's not the type of person who doesn't want to, doesn't throw like shade like that. But there are people out there that I've heard it. They don't want him to succeed and come back as a head coach. I just think it would be funny if somehow like Dayball moves to another team or something, and then Salah gets another opportunity as the New York Giants.
Head coach. Oh Lord,
how wild would that be? Go from an offensive minded coach with Dayball to a defensive minded with Salah. Yeah.
That's a good point. Ryan goes on to say, look, the common factor for this 49ers team is health. The injury bug has bit them hard many years, actually, on both sides of the ball, not just last year, but in previous years too. Dante basically just says, look, the Jets just suck as an organization. As the ex-Detroit defensive coordinator, the now head coach of the team, Aaron Glenn, and my Houston brethren, is about to find out. Well, and plus he played there as a Jets corner. I had to think of if he was a corner, he played as a safety, as a Jets corner. So this is sort of like a homecoming for him. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Salah is. I think he's taking a chance to recalibrate his career and to show the NFL. Look, I know what I do. Is something that probably is sort of specialized, because normally that's how it is with offense coordinators, defense coordinators. But I could show you I know football. I can show you, and this game has not passed me by, and hopefully he will get a chance to show this game hasn't passed him by. But we shall see how successful he will be in his second turn as being the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Now, happier news here. The 2027 NFL Draft. This will make my brother and my partner very happy. It will be held in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. And this was actually announced by President Donald Trump Monday from the Oval Office, predicting it will be a draft like none other, which that would be hard to deny, because I think it would be. Trump revealed the news alongside NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, Washington Commanders chief owner Josh Harris, and Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Trump went on to say about the announcement, quote, "It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be something that nobody else will be able to duplicate. They won't be able to duplicate it. It will be unduplicatable. Trust me, it'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be great." Close quote. Now, the 2027 draft announcement comes 1 week after the Commanders revealed intentions to build a new stadium on the venerable old RFK Stadium site. Now, plans for the 65,000-seat venue still requires the approval of the District of Columbia City Council. I just get the feeling that they probably will pass that along, but I digress. My question to you is this, though. What is the feeling for Commanders fan with this news that the NFL draft in 2 years will be headed into the DMV area?
Much excitement for one, to be able to participate in that. The plans look great, in the beginning of it, and there's still a lot more to go as far as planning it out over the course of the next 22 months. But, as we get to this, it's only one step closer to the new stadium being built, because once the draft happens, you're only 2, maybe 3 years at most away from having the stadium fully built and the things around it, because you're going to have a whole entire new world of an experience as a fan going to these games once that's constructed and built and completed. And they hope to have it done by the beginning of the 2030 season. So that way, all the amenities around it, everybody can enjoy. To be able to have DC hosting a draft party like this, it just goes to show how much of an improvement that this organization has made since the changing of hands at ownership. Because without that single-handedly, this would not be happening in 2027.
I 100% agree with you there.
You would not be seeing this. As much as, there's a lot of people out there that don't like politics and don't like, the way certain things are going. The fact that you even have the president involved in it with this team being is absolutely huge for the fan base, huge for the organization, for the partnerships. This stadium deal would not have gotten done if Snyder was still there. So
correct.
When you go back to 5 years ago, when the pandemic was here and everything that was going on from result, they were still, and I can say it because they say it, they were the Washington Redskins at that point. At this point, 5 years ago, this was the time 5 years ago when all of the noise was coming out about changing the name. Everybody was held in their houses. Everybody was going nuts, cabin fever because of everything going on. We were in the peak of that at this point 5 years ago. When you think about how we were then as fans, me stepping back into that box, people in this area getting upset, about things, and the name just happened to be part of it. And then finally, even though the people were upset for years, but with everything going on in the pandemic as a whole, it was just like a spontaneous combustive that went up in smoke. Everything went downhill, and you had the name go to the Washington football team. The team just stopped really caring because they weren't getting treated right by ownership. You had the poopy water falling on the fans. FedEx falling apart. Yes, it wasn't safety. Comes a factor at that. People don't want to attend that kind of stuff, so of course attendance was going down. Tickets were like a Beyonce concert right now at $20 a piece in certain rows. So you look at how things were affected as a whole, and it was all at the top. Just like the comments that were made earlier about the rotten that starts at the top.
Yeah.
McCoffey said, "Well, this is very
similar, if not the same." Yeah.
So when you look at that and how things are in 2025, how much the change is done in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
How things changed dramatically from that 3-year run with Snyder from the pandemic on. Once they switched the hands of ownership, you now have a breath of fresh air. They start making upgrades to the things within the facility, like, workout equipment. They start making me going there last year. I even told you the next day when we had the show the next day, I said, hey, even the fan experience is better. They've upgraded things.
Yeah,
now,
you did say that. I remember.
The layout around the stadium is still terrible. The parking is still bad. You can't really do much with that. And of course they're not going to, because within a short period of time, 5 years goes by fast, you'll have a new home. So it'll be somebody else's problem by that point. But the overall fan base is excited. Is the best way I can sum it up. They're excited. You have something to look forward to. As long as things improve collectively for us as a nation. I don't really want to get things political, but I want to say this because of where it's at. I mean, you kind of can't ignore it. And with your other programs in the morning shift, which I look forward to seeing back hopefully sooner than later. I love that program, but I get it. But the things that you covered on there, and especially in mentality too, the things you and Wise talk about when it comes to this topic, our nation as a whole is still healing, and we still need to improve, and things, financially still need to get somewhat back on track if they ever can, in comparison to what we were used to back in the day, because we are in a recession and there's still people that are upset about that. So, and a lot of them, and deservingly, and you're entitled to your own opinion. It's like the only thing we're really entitled to in this world is our own opinion. So the concern I still have is, can everybody behave? And where Washington, D.C. is, it's the crime is still out of control in certain spots. It's been contained a little bit better, and things have been contained a little better since they've been moving out people who aren't technically supposed to be here. But that doesn't mean that there are still people that are disgruntled who don't necessarily handle their issues correctly, who feel some type of way because somebody else is in a driver's seat for our country and not making moves that them or their group of individuals that feel that way and talk amongst themselves might not do something wild. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. And I'm hoping, because we see it all the time. People are worried at the Super Bowl, New Orleans, people are worried about the things, the bomber, like, what was it that happened right beforehand at the, you know what I'm talking about? Where
there was a driver that stampeded people and drove and basically used bodies like they were bowling pins.
Yes, and
New Year's Day. Yeah.
It was, when you think about that, that's the one thing that I'm concerned about, and especially with the area of Washington D.C. and it's encompassing areas. So, without getting too far into it, because like I said, I didn't want to get political about it. The only concern I have is, it's in a nice spot, but that doesn't mean that nice people are going to attend. So I hope everybody is on their best behavior, because it's things like this where you have an opportunity to do something really cool, like host the draft. And it takes one situation to mess it up to where you don't get to do it again.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point with this. I just want everybody who goes and attends, and especially whether they're fans of the Commanders, the former name, or fans of any other team in the league, be on your best behavior, because you want them to be able to host it again. Because if this goes right, you're guaranteed to host the Super Bowl once your stadium's built at some point within the mid-2030s. And that's what I want to see. I can't afford to go there. But if we get some other type of pass to work within there, that would be an honor, joy, and privilege as well.
Yeah. And then you'll get other events there too, like, I don't know, WrestleMania, like, I don't know, Final Four. So yeah, you'll get other big time events that'll go there. And I think you're onto something. I think, and I believe, and this is why I love the Commanders ownership group. Magic Johnson's part of it, but the chief, the majority owner, Josh Harris, I think he has a finger on the pulse. I really believe he's looking at this upcoming NFL draft being hosted in DC as like a dress rehearsal for, this is how it's going to be when the new stadium comes in 3 years' time. Well, if it does happen, I think it will. In 3 years' time, this would be a great place for you to be. You'll be safe. It'll be fan friendly. You'll enjoy it. Even if you are not a fan of the Commanders, you'll enjoy it. And definitely, if you are the fan of Commanders, you're definitely going to enjoy it, because this is your team and it's in your city. And I also like the fact you said that you don't want to go political, but you almost have to, and it almost is by default, because DC just brings it out in people. I would dare say the Commanders have been a unifying force for DC, for the DMV area, and not just DC, but for Southern Maryland, or Southeastern Maryland, and Northeastern Virginia. And no matter where you come from in different backgrounds or different socioeconomic stratus, if you can find a common ground, that is where magic happens in terms of humanity, period. I don't care who you are. So to have a team that looks like they're on the come up because the ownership group is 1 million times better than the previous regime. The team seems to know what they're doing in the front office because they're drafting wonderful players. And now you have a star of the future already in place now. I mean, things only are looking up for the Commanders. And now you're gonna get a possible new stadium where for the first time ever you actually get to say DC will host a Super Bowl too. So yeah, I think if I were a Commanders fan and if I was a part of the Commanders organization, I would say that the NFL draft in 2 years is going to be a dress rehearsal for when that stadium goes back onto the old RFK Stadium grounds, and that's the best place for it to be, in my opinion.
Now, the stadium won't be completed within
Oh no, no.
DJT's
Oh
within
no, yeah,
his
yeah,
his
right.
run.
He'll be
'Cause
gone. Yeah, he'll be
even
gone.
though there's all that conspiracy stuff of trying to go for a third, and oh yeah, JD Vance could run, and then he could step down and just
Right.
hand it on over to DJT.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's not happening.
I'm with you on the
Yeah,
eye rolling with that too.
Yeah. I needed to stay up after one shift. When you bring that show back, I'm gonna stay up. We're just gonna have to talk about it. Please, when you talk about
Okay.
that, please bring me on. I
Okay.
will give you some gold, and we can make some great shorts out of it. I guarantee expletive to it. But
Deal.
without going too far into that, because I want to save some gems for that.
Oh, yeah, definitely save the Gems, but deal.
But
Deal. Definitely.
this I want to add to that. We won't see him there in 2030 to be completed.
Right.
But think about back when he was last president.
Yeah,
The
from
Capitals
2017.
The Capitals won a championship.
That's right. They
won a
won
Stanley Cup.
2018.
The
That's
Nationals
right.
won a World Series.
Hey, they won in 2019.
The Wizards will never see the NBA Finals, but the Commanders could win a Super Bowl during Trump's presidency. And we could see not only the turnaround of our nation in certain aspects of it, but the turnaround of Washington, D.C. is in sports, because you could say the DJT turned it around, and he loves sports. And he loves
Huge
football.
sports fan.
He tried
yeah.
to become an NFL owner, and he got
Right.
the original USFL as an owner. So,
Right. He did.
Looking at it now, if the Commanders win the Super Bowl, I'm gonna save that. I gotta save that for your show. I'm gonna save that for the I gotta save that, Jim. But if they do, it will just prove what I'm thinking and what I'm gonna say on the morning shift
Definitely
when we
within
get the opportunity to do it.
Definitely within the next 3 years. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then that's a question I'll ask you then. Good. Perfect. All right. But yeah, we're on the same wavelength on this. I believe that's what DC as a whole, but definitely Commanders fan, I believe, and the Commanders organization doing. And then they're looking at the 2027 NFL draft as a dress rehearsal. And I really do expect this to be, then they're going to go all the way out as having the best experience that you could possibly have at any event there. Because of what you said earlier, they want to make sure that you feel safe there. They want to make sure that you understand that the Commanders are on the way back up. And they also want you to know that, yes, politics exists in D.C., but the Commanders are in lockstep with city government, and they're in lockstep with the federal government, and we are all one beautiful team. You have that going, you can't have anything but a positive experience there. So, yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Dante says, look, it feels like a massive win with the Commanders new ownership. The casino to Petersburg and the Legos to Richmond. Legos, I'm saying the Richmond to Northern Virginia. It feels like a massive win. It is a massive win. And I don't live in Virginia. I know my brother does. I don't live in Virginia.
Dante and I are very close to both of that, of what he said. Richmond and the Petersburg and stuff. So
I know Petersburg is closer to Norfolk, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Petersburg is literally like 10 minutes from where I'm at right now. So in Richmond, a little bit further, but I got to drive through Richmond just to get to where I go to work. So I drive right through it every time I go to work each day. But when it comes to that big statement by Dante there, there's a lot of eyes. Statement. There's a lot of eyes on the casino situation. And I really want to see, I know you've heard of the Richmond Coliseum before. I have. And it still stands. But they haven't done anything with it in several years. So if they could just do something with that site and bring something back, there was a lot of Raws and SmackDowns and sporting events outside of professional wrestling held at the Richmond Coliseum.
Right.
It could be big for Richmond if we could get something like that back over there. I don't see us having a WrestleMania over there like Washington D.C. could.
No.
But there was some pay-per-views, like some in your houses and stuff over at the Richmond Coliseum.
Yeah.
So when you look back at that, that would be huge, based on what Dante said. If we can get something like that over in Richmond again.
And Dante, I won't put it past the possibility of having that ripple effect of how it will be a boon for Richmond, even probably for Pittsburgh too, and going the other direction for Baltimore as well. I can see how this would be a boon for the whole area to have DC be that strong and having such because it's not just a stadium, such a complex. I think that's the best way to put it. Such a complex to be there, and the fact that you all could say, well, even though it's not necessarily a hop, skip, and a jump, I know Richmond's like 2 hours from DC.
Yeah, give or take a few minutes, but it's just the congestion. Like Washington D.C. is congested, but like if this whole RFK site's built out the way that they're showing us, you're gonna have a lot of parking opportunities, a lot of other things to do around it. You got a lot of things to do around in Richmond,
right?
You have that, but the problem with Coliseum was, one, it was very old because it was built in like the 60s. Right. And it was getting run down, and the parking deck situation wasn't all that great. If you can at least tear those down and redevelop the parking situation and to build a nice Coliseum, you can hold some decent events there, and you can hold 20, 30,000 people, and they're easy. Yeah. But you just got to have the parking to suffice that. So great statement by Dante.
That's a wonderful statement. Yeah.
And to kind of go along with what they're doing in DC, they're building, Virginia and DC and surrounding, like Baltimore or like Maryland up. You've seen this being revolutionized over the past 20, 30 years.
That's what I thought.
And I think it kind of starts with when you look back in the 90s with Baltimore and Camden Yards.
I'll be the first to tell you, because that was the first new any stadium or arena or ballpark development that I can remember, was that one.
And the only reason why FedEx and all that happened, all that's political. So the Commanders and that franchise, formerly known as the Redskins, they have been taken back because of politics. The other surrounding states and work, were slightly affected. But then you start seeing the Ravens come into town, moving everything that's happened over the last 30 years. And now finally the Commanders and that franchise gets their due. At some point, and it's like Virginia's getting some wins, and hopefully soon, maybe not necessarily a professional team, but the Coliseum. That's what I really want to see in my area.
That would be great. That would be great. And I think because of what's happening with the Commanders, I think you all might see that. And I know they're not near DC. I think you probably see it, because I think that it'll cause a ripple effect. And that's a really good point with Camden Yards. Because you're right, because it spawned the Ravens moving, it spawned the FedEx Field, it spawned the Wizards and the Capitals to move into DC from the Capitol Center.
Expos moving to National,
and the Expos moving to DC and being in Nationals Park. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And now to me, the crown jewel, the Washington NFL franchise coming back to being in DC, and not just in DC, but on the venerable RFK Stadium grounds.
A glass roof that you can see through,
roof to boot.
That you can see through, and it's climate controlled.
Yes, not just a glass roof, but if you're in the stadium and you're sitting on one of the end zones, I think from what I'm seeing from the diagram, you actually can look and you get a picture of the Capitol from inside the stadium. I was like, oh, this is going to be beautiful if they do this, and they create it that way. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Whether we get passes to go in, you will have to come down, and we will have to go to the game together.
Oh yeah.
We already have
that experience.
Whether it's as fans or with passes, we need to be in there and be a part of it.
Oh yes, sick. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, and I forgot it is climate control. I was like, that's right, it has a roof. Makes sense. Glass roof. That's right, sick. Glass roof. Similar, but not the same, but similar to like what but it's not, but you don't think you see above it, like what SoFi and Allegiant Stadium has. But I say similar because you actually can see through with this diagram that they're having with the new Commander Stadium. Ooh, that's gonna be good. That's gonna be good. But yeah, I'm looking at the draft as that being a dress rehearsal to have this announcement to the rest of us, media types, fans, and not just football, not just NFL fans, just sports fans in general. DC is a safe place to be, and everybody's on board. And that's one of the reasons why. That's one of the biggest reasons why whenever you have conversations like this, you have people say, "Well, the reason why I get into sports is because I don't deal with the politics stuff and I don't deal with the life stuff. It's an escape." And how great is it when you actually can have people in the political sphere say, "And we believe in this same escape too, and we want this to thrive." Win-win all the way around. So yeah, all I have to say to you as a Commanders fan and the person who covers the Commanders is keep it up. Your team keeps hitting grand slams, bro. I'm loving it. I'm loving it for your Commanders. I'm loving it for the NFL. And I've said this to you in private, and I'll say it on air. People say that the league is better when the Cowboys are successful. They haven't seen it when the team in Washington is successful. Most of them, when they say that, they haven't. Because when they are successful, man, you'll be seeing a league that'll be on fire, bro. And I've witnessed it.
And
I witnessed it when
seen...
I witnessed when I was a child and a young adult. Yeah, and when you getting a taste of it now, I'm telling you, bro. Ooh, if the Commanders win it, if the Commanders win
too young to remember it.
Yeah, they won when you were like what 5?
5, yeah,
yeah. But you got a taste of it now of last year. If they in the next 2 years or 3 years get hoist a Vince Lombardi trophy soon, oh man. Look how the whole rest of the country will gravitate to Washington. You'll love it, bro.
I look forward. I mean, I've seen, of course, they got NFL films. They got video that shows shows the past, and you can tell that there. But just like you said, I was 5 when they last won it. I was 1 when they won the one before that because they won 4 years before that in '88 for the '87 season, and the '91 season and '92. So looking at it for what it is, like they had some flashes in the pan. I remember when they made it in '99 to the wild card game and Norv Turner was the coach, and I was 12. I was actually in a wrestling tournament that day, like a freestyle wrestling tournament that day. And they had a little TV up at the snack bar. I remember buying some food. It was like midway through the tournament, and they had the game on, and the Bucks punished them. And then, and then Norv got fired, and that was the first year that Dan Snyder was the coach. I was 99, and then the Gibbous, I call him Joe Gibbs, but he's amazing, so I call him the Gibbous.
I love Joe Gibbs.
He's got to have a cool nickname, and from me, it's the Gibbous. And with the Gibbous, what he did for that little bit of a run when he came back for the second act, there was hope. There was hope, and we weren't fully exposed to Dan Snyder at that point as far as who he was. No. We knew he hadn't made that great of moves as in the front office, but we didn't know how bad of a human being he was at that point. I mean, so looking at that, those were some flashes in the pan until the RG3 rookie season, and then of course this past year. So it's been a very bumpy road for Commanders fans, fans of the former franchise name, all that stuff over the last 30 years. But it's finally over the last year and a half, it's come in quick and it's coming fast. But they have turned things around, and as long as things continue on this same path with momentum, and they keep having fun. Yes. And especially when you have Irvin Magic Johnson part of your team, no matter what he's doing, whatever way he's a part of something, he brings a spark to things. Yes. And as long as you let him voice it, like when he was with the Lakers during that last run, he didn't have as much freedom as it seems like he has as this part in the front office.
Freedom here. Yeah. He has much more freedom here.
And with that you can see I've seen things on the outside with Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's participated in many things with these players and
Mhm.
with the fan base. So getting back to
Yes.
that, the fan base has gotten this excited because they
Mhm.
think of Magic Showtime Lakers, what
Mhm.
that team did in that sport, what he's done as an owner since then, what he's
Mhm.
done as an owner in other sports like Major
Mhm.
League Baseball. The Dodgers have
Dodgers.
a championship with
Mhm.
him. He has WNBA owners, his
That's
championship
right.
there. He's
Sports.
in multiple
Mhm.
sport. I think even like a
As a
something
soccer
in
team.
soccer. Yeah, that's what
It's
to
a
say.
soccer.
So
Mhm.
he wins everywhere. So at
Mhm.
some point, while Magic Johnson, hopefully, knock on wood as I am right now, everything stays the way it is, and he's with us for quite some time, so we can see this payoff too. Because overall, this fan base is just purely excited.
Yeah. And I'm excited for you. This was a long time in coming, and I'm happiest that this is not happening under Daniel Snyder. But then again, I don't think it could. I don't
We
think it
wanted it as fans. We wanted to see it.
as
We just
fans,
wanted
you
to see
wanted to see it,
positive.
yeah. Right.
But we just knew it just wasn't possible. Like, you're not getting the
Mhm.
Super Bowl. You might get to the wild card game and win and go to the division and get smacked. And that's what
Right.
happened every
Every
single time if
Every
they
single
did get
time.
out of the wild card game. So this is a great topic that you brought up in this one. I'm glad you did, and it was worth the time that we've spent on it because there was a lot of great things we said.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll take you up on that. I'll take you on both your offers. Definitely when I do bring up the morning shift, if we have that conversation, I look forward to the nuggets you'll drop. And yeah, that invite of being in the new stadium. Oh yeah, definite. Yeah, deal on both. Deal on both. Oh man. Now, speaking of a person who used to play for the Commanders, one Kirk Cousins. Now, March bonus deadline, the bulk of the free agency and the NFL draft has come and gone, and something that seems like a long shot a few months ago now remains a reality. Quarterback Kirk Cousins, he's still a member of the Atlanta Falcons, and it could continue that way into even the training camp and into the 2025 season. Now, the organization, they say they love Kirk and they love that he's there. However, there's some things that are problematic. Now, the Falcons signed Cousins to a $100 million guaranteed contract last offseason, and he performed well enough the first half of the season, but he started to struggle mightily during a 4-game losing streak, and then he got replaced in the playoff stretch, and that leads to the other problem. He got benched in week 16 in favor of then rookie Michael Penix Jr., who was drafted number 8 overall in 2024's NFL draft. And the Falcons made it clear that Penix will be their quarterback moving forward. And it seems as if Cousins' time in Atlanta was short and possibly coming to a close. But rather than release him, the Falcons picked up that $10 million bonus for Cousins back in March, which will take place and take effect next year. The team has made it clear that it will not just cut him without getting any compensation from other organizations. And Cousins, who has a no-trade clause, has made it known that he wants to be a starting quarterback anywhere in the NFL this coming season. And he went as far as a phone meeting with owner Arthur Blank to plead his case for being released. All right. Now, my question to you about a quarterback that you rooted for many years. Will we actually see Kirk Cousins in a new uniform, chiefly in Pittsburgh?
This is kind of, it's not your fault, but like the overall consensus of people talking about, I feel like it's kind of a reach because
I agree with that. I agree with that.
The whole everyone is like jumping the gun on this because Captain Ayahuasca has got one of two options, and number one is going to more than likely be the Steelers because from what the Vikings have said so far throughout this offseason, they're liking how JJ is coming along.
They are.
And they're not going to move from him because that would really, really, really mess with his confidence at this point. Yeah. You know, he got hurt last year. Right. He was supposed to be the guy. Darnold came in, did what he did with this team. They moved Darnold, or they moved on from Darnold just so they could give him the opportunity And you're gonna bring in Rodgers, even though Rodgers wants to go to the Vikings. Vikings, you can just see it in his
that's where
eyes.
he wants to go. Right.
He wants to go there.
He wants to shove it in the Packers' faces. Yeah.
He wants to shove it in the Packers' face, but he also knows that's the best opportunity for him to succeed and potentially make a Super Bowl would be with the Vikings. And especially, even though they have the Lions in that league, which I feel like if that defense gets their hands on Aaron Rodgers, he might not even make it to the playoffs, regardless of what that team does. So, I mean, if I were Rodgers, I would stick to the Steelers. I feel like that this is grasping at straws for this topic right here because Rodgers is more than likely 99.9% going to the Steelers if he plays anywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Vikings don't want him. I mean, and they're publicly saying it. And unless something dramatically happens to JJ during the offseason, which is what happened last year and why Darnold was thrusted into the starting spot, it might be messed up to say this if he's doing it, but it might appear as if Aaron Rodgers is doing what Brett Favre did in that time with the Vikings when he waited till it was like July or damn near August when he finally signed with the Vikings because he was a free agent because the Jets let him go.
Like they were like in training camp, I think, when he signed. Yeah.
It was into the summer. It was like mid to late summer when he finally, because the playbook that Brad Childress was running, he knew because he knew it. Yeah. That's why they were able to have the success that they did that year, and he went to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
So, and then we're not talking about the final year right now. Take up that time, but when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, I feel like in his mind, because of how things went last year, he wanted to go on his little trip in June, and they made a big deal about it because he missed that one part of camp for a few days. If he, uses this angle of he's got some personal things going on, and then he waits and comes back, and if he feels like playing by July, I think that they've already had this type of discussion in the locker room, like, hey, I got some things going on, but if I am 1,000% going to play, it's going to be with you, and I'm not going to show up until July. Because by the time you show up in July, you pretty much give yourself like 6 weeks to get ready before the start of the season in the beginning of September. So if you are Aaron Rodgers and you're 40 years old and you're thinking about what Brett did and what Brett did to have that successful year, and what he mainly did was come in towards the latter part and rested his body. The next year, Brett was under contract. If you remember, he was there in April and May and June, participating in the OTAs because they went to the NFC Championship and they were trying to build on that because they had the success that they did. He was all in at that point, but he ran himself into the ground because he was 41, didn't have this type of stamina that he had. And that's the positive things I can say about Brett Favre today. We'll keep it at that. But when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, maybe he's taking a page out of that book. I'm going to focus on the things that I need to focus on for after football as much as I can. And then if I really want to play, which those parts are true, so he's kind of playing a word game, then by July, we'll talk pen to paper, and I'll show up and start studying playbook and then start participating. Won't do preseason, but you'll see me week one. That's what I think is going on here. Kirk Cousins, unless, and I think it's a very small percent, like a 1% chance, Aaron Rodgers does not go to the Steelers.
I agree.
Then that's plan B. But and the Falcons know it's plan B, I think, and that's why they're going to probably play some hardball for the picks, which is why they picked up that $10 million option, because they know that the contract is high, but Kirk Cousins by now should be fully healed, because it just felt like last year he wasn't fully healed. By now he should be at the best of what he can be moving forward as a professional quarterback. The best time to get Kirk Cousins is during this offseason if you're going to. So there is validity to this. I don't think it's going to happen, because I think that they're either going to go with Aaron Rodgers or bust with Mason Rudolph as the secondary option, because they have familiarity with him. He knows the system, and Mike Tomlin truly believes he can still have a winning record of some sort with Mason Rudolph in his system, whether it's as a backup, a fill-in, or a spot starter if he has to, until they figure out this starting situation. So as much as I want to see Kirk Cousins have success, and I would much rather see him have success in the AFC, so it doesn't hinder the Commanders' option to get to the Super Bowl at some point. That's just my mindset from it. I didn't like him staying within the NFC and going to the Falcons last year, and I didn't think it was a good move. And I even said when they drafted Penix, what happened was going to happen. You can go back and find the short. I'll even send it to you if you don't believe me, people out there. I made a short with Corey Mann on an In or Out Sports Debate when they drafted Penix about how he was going to take over for Cousins at some point, and that this was not in a good move for Cousins. And I didn't think it was going to happen the way it did necessarily, but I just said that at some point this year it's going to happen, and it did. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh as far as who their guy is by week 1. I just don't think it's Kirk Cousins. I don't see him there, and if he does land there, it's going to be in 2026. It's not going to be this season. They're going to hold out for Rodgers, and if they don't get him, they're just going to deal with it until next year.
Your Rodgers point is on point. I think as much as it's been publicized that he doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of Brett Favre, I think he's following a lot of the playbook of him. And I think now that he's in his 40s, I think he's understanding why. And I agree with you. I think he is trying to play the waiting game. And I wouldn't be surprised if this goes all the way until July, maybe even August. And we see Mr. Ayahuasca sign on the dotted line and say, all right, give me the playbook. I think I know it. Give me the uniform. I think I'll be comfortable in it. You're gonna be Super Bowl bound just because I'm on the team. I can see that happening. I can see him doing that. And the reason why I wanted to actually throw that angle with using the Steelers was because of what you said. And I feel for Cousins from the standpoint of I think the Falcons like him, and I think they want to use him for insurance. But I think he's going to be massively disappointed because I believe the team wants to move forward with Michael Penix Jr. And I felt that way too as soon as they drafted him. I was like, oh man, they just signed Kirk Cousins. They picked this guy in the first round. I'm like, man, they're going to have him start sometime in the 2024 season. I didn't think he was going to start after a 4-game losing streak from Cousins, but I figured it was going to happen. And I feel for him because I think Cousins wanted to retire as the starting quarterback for the Falcons, have a couple of years, maybe actually have 2024 be like 2026, where he could groom the next guy, and he'll be happy to actually usurp the seat to the future guy, and he can ride off into the sunset. But I feel for him now because he feels as though he can contribute to a team. I'm not saying he can't, but he feels as though he can contribute to a team. But unfortunately, the latest piece of tape has him going on a losing streak, and the year before coming off of a season-ending injury. And he's now on the north side of 35. Forget 30. He's on the wrong side of 35, and he's a starting quarterback. I feel for him, and I like Cousins. I like him a lot, but I feel for him and where he wants to go. I think he will find it tough. He may find a starting spot. Ooh, it's going to be rough, though. And I think he might not like where he lands. I think that's going to be the problem. Wow.
We'll see how it pans out, but you and I are definitely on the same page with that.
Yeah. And yes, Hawk TV, it is good to see you. What's up, brother?
It's been a minute, Hawk.
It has been a minute. And yes, we're going to address this now. Shedeur, quote, slides, close quote, in the draft. And now fans sue, get the H out of here. Yes, sir. We're talking about it now. 2 weeks ago, Shedeur Sanders was expected to be a shoo-in first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft in the NFL. The consistent number 2 quarterback in the class, led college football in completion percentage in last year, and helped the Buffaloes to their first 9-win season in 11 years. But Sanders slid from round number 1 to round number 5 as the Browns traded up to secure a potential starting quarterback for the 2025 season. But he drafted another quarterback in the third round, but I digress. His slide was the biggest storyline of draft weekend. Now, a Colorado Buffaloes fan is seeking $100 million in damages in a lawsuit filed against the NFL for Sanders' drop to the 5th round, according to a filing obtained by USA Today. The plaintiff, referred to as John Doe in the filing, alleges in the complaint, oh my goodness, it's just so funny. It alleges in the complaint that, quote, the NFL's actions and the dissemination of slanderous statements have caused severe emotional distress and trauma. Close quote. Per the filing, Doe is a Georgia resident and a, quote, dedicated fan of Colorado football, close quote, who attended Colorado versus TCU, the game that was in Fort Worth, in 2023. This is the game that the Buffaloes won 45-42. As Sanders completed 38-47 for 510 yards and 4 touchdowns. My question to you about this ridiculousness is the following. Why is this fan wasting his time in fighting a lawsuit?
Drugs.
One of the rare times I wouldn't mind going off the rails. This is now. Oh my gosh.
You have got to be on drugs in order to make this lawsuit, because just like the feeling on the other side of this you have to be, in order to compose the thoughts, to put those together, to say, hey, I'm going to sue for something that I have nothing as far as any type of affiliation with. I didn't give anybody any money. I wasn't a part of any type of business transaction with this. I have never even spoken to this individual that fell into the 5th round.
Oh my gosh.
Probably can't even spell his first name correctly. Okay. You probably had to use some whiteout to write on that thing and fix that application for the lawsuit several times, because they said, sir, madam, whoever the expletive, you can't even spell this gentleman's name correctly, who slipped to the 5th round of the draft, who you're even suing for the rights for this slanderous situation that you did some drugs and believe that this is what's going on. I'm sorry if you are not on drugs, because you must have been dropped on your head. I don't know what happened for you to feel some type of way about somebody you've only seen on TV. This is very similar to how some people get about let me rewind. Mm-hmm. People get upset about what they see on the TV and freak out. Okay, you see it all the time. You see it in politics. You see it when their favorite character gets killed off the TV show. Whatever the situation may be, you get upset. But at the end of the day, you weren't there. You didn't write the script. You didn't invest any money into it. You weren't the agent. Why are you suing for something that you weren't even a part of? You weren't there. You don't know. So then you go to your local courthouse and you start asking questions, probably eyes as bloodshot as the devil's expletive, okay?
No, not the
and you're trying to figure out how you can be compensated based on this fact right here. The fact that this kid slipped to the 5th round. It's not your fault. Gosh. It's not his fault. The only answer that I really can put up, and I've thought about it more than what this person put thought into before they put the lawsuit into action, it has to be drugs. That's the only answer I really have for this. What else can make you want to file a lawsuit for something you weren't even a part of. You were sitting on the couch, eating Cheetos, or whatever you were doing, and you said, oh, I've got this great fathering idea. I'm going to sue the Shield for letting this kid fall from the top 3 pick he was set on TV because they lied to me on TV. I watched Screaming A. Smith and so many people out there say that he's going to be taken 3rd overall by the Giants. And Mel Kiper Jr. said at worst, he falls to the Saints at 9. Well, holy expletive, none of it happened. Because all 32 teams passed on the kid through the first 4 rounds of the draft and halfway through the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. Johnny Go F Yourself gets upset. Whatever stuff is piped into his system. And he trots himself down to the local courthouse, probably on a moped. Goes down to the courthouse, and he's not even wearing a helmet, so he's not even safe there. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Humpty Dumpty fell on his head off of the moped and went and filed a lawsuit, Cole Johnson.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the result of that. Trying to go F yourself is trying to F so many things up, and all he's doing is exposing himself for what he has not done, and that's apparently taking care of himself.
Oh my gosh. You could not have said that any better. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad we talked about that and you knocked that out the park. Oh my gosh. Dante says, look, this is why coaches get fired, GMs get fired and hired. How do you let Starks fall to Baltimore, Campbell going to Philly, and have the NFL have the worst GM and seem to outsmart themselves? Yeah, I mean, you see these ridiculous moves, and it's and as fans we shake our heads. And he goes on to say, look, this was ridiculous on both sides. No way Sanders should have went in the 5th, and this is why the NFL have the same team issues. You draft to make your team better. At least I thought that is why you draft. and this is what doesn't make sense to me. So you had the Browns trade up to get him, and 2 rounds before you already drafted the quarterback.
Yeah, Bill Gabriel.
Right. Yeah. The standout from Oregon. And I'm like, the southpaw standout from Oregon. I'm like, you already have the quarterback you drafted in your draft. In your draft. Why would you want to have now the 5th quarterback in your QB room? And oh, by the way, one of them you have thrown $230 million guaranteed to. So, oh my gosh, I just laugh. And I agree with you. It's so brain dead to sue, and in this case, it's brain dead to sue for the reason that he feels as though he should sue. I'm like, oh my gosh, jeez. 6 says, this humorous side by Drew Willingham is brought to you by Slackjaw VPN, the ideal VPN for slacking off. Slackjaw VPN, where the slacking be smooth. And Iron Killed Cybersecurity, the best way to protect your pants. Iron Killed Cybersecurity. We wear kilts and never get caught. Oh my gosh, this is just ridiculous. I'm like, is the fandom experience so crappy? We are so emotionally tied into somebody to where we feel as though they've been hosed, and we get a chance to sue the league, and they have nothing to do with this.
Bruh.
It is not like Roger Goodell, and he has done some brain dead things, but it's not like Roger Goodell said to the 32 owners, don't draft Shedeur Sanders until Saturday. And he can't say that to them. They're his boss, so they would laugh him out the room.
I mean, no, you shouldn't have bombed his interviews. You should have taken them more seriously. And regardless if you wanted to go to the team or not, you should have still presented yourself professionally. I mean, and still in a professional manner, still be able to get the point across that you prefer to not be there. I'm sure that those reports are probably true, and that you should be punished by that.
And I think there's a lot of contributing factors to it. I think that's the biggest one right there.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Brian Daboll was the one who actually verbally said that. And I don't like nor dislike Shedeur Sanders, but I could see that behavior there. I mean, we are talking about a young man, and I like him, but we're still talking about a young man who, after last year's game between Colorado and Colorado State, went to the opposing quarterback at the end of the game, and instead of shaking his hand, he said, "Oh, look at the scoreboard." This is the same kid that when after a touchdown was scored, he unveiled a Rolex as a touchdown celebration. It is not far-fetched that he probably looked at some of these teams that interviewed him and said, "I don't want to be drafted by you fools. What was your record again? 5-11, 5-12. Bump y'all. I'm gonna go to a contender." I can picture him saying some ridiculousness like that. So, but yeah, should he have gone all the way down to 5th? Probably not. But look, we talk about this ad nauseum, not Drew and I, but football fans do. People who consider him to be the greatest quarterback of all time, I don't. But I mean, Mr. Tom Brady, or Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Sucker. He was drafted in the 6th round. So and he made a career out of making teams pay for having him slip that far down to the 6th round and starting his 2nd year in the league, winning Super Bowls. So and Brady basically said that to Shedeur. He says, "Look, just use it as a motivational tool. Just make the teams pay, including the one who drafted you, because they passed on you 4 rounds to their gone selves. So make every team pay, and use it as fuel. Use it as a motivating factor for you to play at your best, because you're going to need a chip on your shoulder to be at your best anyway. So it's up to him to make it a positive, but I think it was up to him that made him slide that far down. Because I agree with you. I think the attitude that he had in these combine interviews turned teams off. And how could it not? And it's not that he's confident. Look, Jameis Winston is confident, and I'm sure he had that confident air about him. But he wasn't like, "I'm too good for all of y'all" when he got to the quarterback room, because he was drafted high. And we're talking about a guy who actually has a lot of confidence in being a quarterback.
And he's got 5-finger crab legs.
And he 5-finger crab legs, which is something that Shedeur Sanders didn't do because he was clean of the law. So you have a guy in Winston who teams look down upon him to a degree and saying, "Yeah, you're little sticky fingers, but you know football and you're humble. Okay, I think we could take you. And we might even consider you." At least Shedeur, you could have given them, okay, he might be interested in being on the team. We already know he knows his football, but he shouldn't have gone to these interviews literally tanking them. And that's the issue that I have. That's the overall issue I have. Because I think he had the similar idea, because there's a famous story that even Dion himself told, where he said that when he got to the NFL draft, when it was his turn to get drafted, the Giants came up to him and he said that they were looking to draft him. And he said, "Okay, so when are you all up to draft me?" They said, "Well, probably number 9. He says, "Oh, number 9? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. No. I'm going to be taken off the board by the time you all go up. So, no, not happening. So I want to believe that he didn't play. Thomas Shedeur didn't play a role in his departure and his downfall in the draft. I mean, but I can't help but think that he did play a role in that. And it's like what Dante said. This is the one thing that I think people forget when it comes to the draft. These teams are looking for a reason to draft you, and they're looking for a reason to pass you up. So you can do the best that you can to not give them a reason to say, well, he's a buster. I don't want to fool with him. He ain't taking the whole process seriously. Forget him. You don't want teams to say that about you, but teams said that about. I'm sure the Browns even said that about him, and that's the problem. Dante said also, he said that's where he is too. He says, why look and act like a donkey? I'm with you. Why? I don't get it. I don't get it either. I really don't. So Dante, and for those who don't know, Dante is a huge, and I do mean capital H, capital U, capital G, capital E, Eagles fan. He says, so when you see him say us, he's alluded to the Eagles. He says he thinks the Browns got him and snatched him in the 5th round, so the Browns didn't want the Eagles to get him. Oh. Okay, so you feel as though the Eagles are going to take Sanders. Well, what good would he have been though? Because you're good with Jalen Hurts. If it would be like, how can I say it? If it would be like Donovan McNabb to the tail end of his career, I could see them drafting someone like a Shedeur Sanders for sure. But Jalen's just about to reach his prime if he got another year to get there. So I don't know. But I'm agree with you. I think he acted like a fool, did too many interviews, and let's be real. These teams talk to one another. Forget the owners. I'm talking about the executives talk to one another, and the coaches talk to one another. And people were passing on the word collusion, but I'm like, no, they weren't colluding. They were like, was he a clown to you? Yeah, he was a clown to me too. I don't know what the deal is with him. That's just the talk that you have. Six says, look, the good thing about Shedeur being in Cleveland, there won't be any scandals. Well, there won't be any scandals with him because he doesn't really do scandals, really. They're dealing with, though, a headache in Deshaun Watson that they wish they didn't take on, but, well, Jimmy Haslam thought it was a great idea to sign him. Dante said, look, now the guy who said it about us drafting him, talking about the Eagles, is 100 he doesn't miss. And the guy he's talking about is Hire Rosen. And look, he's, to me, I think he is the best right now in terms of drafts. He's the best GM in the business. He's the best GM by far. And I'm not saying it because Dante's an Eagles fan. I've said this to other people. I've said this to other non-Eagles fans, just NFL fans. And I said it to him when you all drafted, was it Jamal Campbell? I said, I'll be doggone. Congratulations, bro. And I said this to a Eagles fan that I'm close to. I said, doggone, congratulations, bro. You got another steal. You got another steal in the draft. I'm like, how in the world does he do this? Yeah. Oh, drafted QB, Kurt McCord. Yeah, I think that's the guy. Oh, the one that used to be in Ohio State. Yeah, I think that's who they got. I might be wrong, but I think that's who they got. But yeah, the thing is, though, I think Shedeur wanted to start. So I think that would have been a bit of a headache for you guys. I don't know if you all would wanted to have him be on your sideline. Probably had a situation like with Brett Favre back in 1991 when the Falcons drafted him. that he did all he could to get off the team, and he lucked up and ended up becoming the starting quarterback for the Packers the following year. Now, Six says, look, imagine how ridiculous things could get when Shiloh, Shedeur's brother, eventually enters the NFL draft. Well, he signed. He signed with the Bucks as a undiscovered. Sorry, as a free agent. So he's good. He's good. He's now property of the Bucks. So I can bottom line this very simple. To the fan that wanted to sue, and I still can't believe I'm saying this, to the fan that wanted to sue the NFL because a prospect fell 4 possible rounds. Come on, man. Really? Ron. Say it one more time. Charlie.
Stop it. Get some help. That's terrible. What? 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 What?
I thank you guys. I don't understand this. I really don't. I'm having a hard time grasping why a person wants to sue the NFL, because the 32 teams within their right had the right to say, yeah, we want him, or no, we're passing up on him. So now you want to open the door to other idiots that if they deem a talent strong enough to be in the first round, but they fall a round or 2 or 3, that they are actually going to waste the county's court system and our tax-paying dollars to fund a frivolous lawsuit? Really? Because your feelings were hurt? Because that's what this trauma thing is about. Your feelings were hurt. Well, fine, your feelings are going to be hurt. That's just how it is. Your feelings are going to have to be, and it's going to have to stay hurt. And the reason being is because these teams have the right to pick and draft who they desire. And part of me wishes I was decorated enough to actually be on the bench and credentialed enough to be on the bench to actually say to you, son, you're wasting our time, you're wasting the people's time, and you wasted your own doggone time. So I'm not even going to say call a witness. I'm not even going to have opening statements and remarks. We're not going to have closing remarks. we're gonna have this only remark right here. Your case has no merit, and you, sir, need to go. Case dismissed. And in that 90 seconds, the case is gone because it would only take that long for people to adjudicate saying that you're stupid in even filing it in the first place. And Dante raises a great point. Then there is the guy that is suing Steve Smith uh, because of him cheating on his wife. His feelings were hurt. Yeah. But the thing is, do two things about that: divorce court and alimony. If you feel as though you have been financially hurt, get it back in that manner. But to sue Steve Smith is ridiculous. And yeah, I had a laugh and a chuckle about that too. These ridiculous, hackneyed lawsuits are getting no, they've gotten past ridiculous. It's getting tired. I mean, I don't get why this guy was not laughed off of even filing the doggone thing. That's where I am. How is it that he did not get laughed off? Sir, may I help you? Yeah, I'm here to file a lawsuit. What for, sir? I want to file a lawsuit, and I want to and I want to sue. Okay, sir, who do you want to sue? The National Football League. Come again? Yeah, I want to sue the National Football League. Okay, what's the reason? Well, they hurt my feelings because Shedeur Sanders dropped in the first or fifth round. Sorry, sir. Yeah, put on the docket. I want to sue the NFL because the NFL hurt my feelings having Shedeur Sanders be drafted not on Thursday night or Friday night, but Saturday afternoon. I'm sure if there was someone who actually did follow football in that filing, had to be so cold on that regard and just be like, what? All day and night to him. Oh my gosh.
So,
and Don says the crazy thing, Cole, is they win 30% of the time for big money. And that's probably why I guess you may raise the point of it might be worth their time to file the suit. Oh my gosh. Yeah, what do you have to say, man?
I unfortunately, and you know why, because I had to pay a bill real quick. Yeah. But as I was coming back in, it warmed my heart to hear that you were talking busted about for bumping uglies unethically. Because now, when you look at this situation and how stupid it is, and we were talking about the Shedeur Sanders situation as I had to step away for a second, these are just two boneheaded situations that a month ago we didn't think we would be talking about.
Mm-mm.
And here we are. Football, and where we're at in May, we're talking about busted for bumping uglies, and we're talking about somebody suing for something that isn't even involved with it. What is going on in America?
I thought it was just me.
No, it's not. It's not. And our viewers are telling us they are feeling the same way. This is absolute insanity. You can't even do this in Grand Theft Auto. And we got a new one coming out. They just announced it. We're going to have to wait even longer for it. And for those of you who like video games and Grand Theft Auto, and you were hoping to play it on PC like myself, because I don't play much video games anymore, but I will play that. And you can't even get it on PC right away. You have to buy a console just to play Grand Theft Auto 6 if you want to. And you can't even do what we're talking about in the game.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. I'm thinking about this doggone lawsuit every time it comes to my brain. I just break out in laughter because it's so stupid. It's so stupid. I'm like, oh my gosh, the people are suing for stupid stuff.
Two of the
And like
dumbest
you said,
lawsuits.
last week, because last week you talked about a guy suing Steve Smith for cheating on his wife, and now this. Good Lord, it just goodness gracious. But yeah, if either Drew or I were in anywhere near that bench, John Doe, we would tell you were stupid in even making this a suit in the first place. And if I were a judge, I would, like I said to him, not like I said in front of the audience, forget any arguments from the lawyers. Forget that. Forget witnesses. Forget everything. I'm going to disappoint you and say you get not a dime. In fact, you're probably going to pay more money out your pocket because you were stupid enough to file a lawsuit that has nothing to do with you or anything that you did in any capacity in either representing Shedeur Sanders or any of the teams that passed on him. Goodness gracious. But I guess that's what makes great content, right? Ridiculousness like this. Fans suing the league because a player falls in the draft. Oh my God. I have now heard it all. Goodness gracious. Oh, let's do the 2-minute drill. Here's where we do a preview for the games that's to come, and hopefully none of the participants in these games will get sued.
Sorry.
Oh
I wasn't expecting it.
Thank you. We will start with tonight's game, or for those who are watching on another day, we'll start with Friday's game. The DC Defenders, they've been reeling over the past couple of weeks. They're now 4-2. They're in San Antonio. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. To take on the Brahmas at 1-5. Fox will carry that at 8 p.m. All times are Eastern Daylight Time, that is. The Defenders are 7.5-point favorites in this game. And who do you have in it?
You know, with this game right here, based on what we saw last week, you know, with these two teams, I mean, both of them were served the big old nasty. And the Brahmas were on the worst side of that. And they are hosting this game at home. They were on the road last week against a tough team. The Defenders were on the road last week and played a tough team in the Panthers. And I think they're going to look to rebound. Even though I picked the Defenders to win last week, they are 4-2 for a reason and 4-1 before that for very good reasons. I think they feel embarrassed based on what happened. They won't have a team that'll be fumbling them the football and not having the opportunity to take advantage of it, because the Brahmas will fumble the football, but I think that the Defenders will have learned from their mistakes from the past week, be able to get the ball into the end zone, because when you look at what Jordan Ta'amu can do, he still can throw for nearly 250 to 300 passing yards each game is what he averages. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but like you said earlier in the show, having close to 50% completion percentage is a concern. So I think that he's going to turn it up a little bit in this game, and it's not really hard to do that against the Brahmas right now. The Defenders will win this by at least 10 points. They'll win it pretty decisively tonight.
I agree with you. I think the Defenders will have a double-digit victory over the Brahmas. I'm still concerned about Tom. I really would want him to shore up being more efficient when he drops back to pass. But I think the Defenders' defense can actually heal up, and I think they can do well against the Brahmas. And I feel strong about the Defenders actually, I guess, licking their wounds and getting back to their winning ways. Hopefully they will, for their sake. For the Brahmas, Oh, I really feel for them. Man, 1-6 possibly. Ooh, that's brutal.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right, now we get to the Saturday tilt, and that will be the Panthers, also at 4-2. They travel to Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, and all points in between in the Metroplex. But Arlington is where they will be playing against the Renegades, who are 3-3. Fox will also carry that game. 1 p.m. is the kick. The Panthers are favored by 3. And who do you have in this one?
This one, I feel like the Renegades, even though they're at 500, I feel like for some reason this week they're going to be able to give a little bit more of a better competition to this Panthers team because they're hosting this game at home. I may be incorrect, but I feel like at the same time, Luis Perez has got to be feeling some type of way about how the season's going and how inconsistent he's been at quarterback, and is going to try to flip the switch. And when they've been flirting with 500, this season, where they'll be, 2-1, then lose, then win, 3-2, then lose. It's like they're winning every other game. It feels like the Renegades. I think even though Michigan is slated to take this game, I'm going to say this is going to be our upset of the week right here. I have the Renegades winning this game by a field goal.
I don't think you're far-fetched with that. Which unit am I unimpressed with more? The Panthers as a whole, because they seem to be inconsistent, or the Renegades offense because they seem to be not clicking on those cylinders. If I have to be honest, I probably have to say it's probably the Renegades offense. But credit to them, they have a way of forcing teams to struggle, and they seem to do well in having these defensive slugfests.
Yes,
and this game is in Arlington, and I probably you might be right. I think this probably would be a game where the Renegades will probably sneak a last-second field goal and actually be the Panthers. So I think I'm with you on that too. Yeah.
It just depends on how they respond to the defensive pressure by the Panthers, because the Panthers, have been strong on defense this year, and that's a big reason why they won last week. But why they have 2 losses, and if the defenders were actually on their game last week, why they should have knocked the Panthers to 3-3 is because the Panthers have had fumble-itis at different parts of this season. And they fumbled the ball multiple times last week. And I feel like if they continue on with that trend, the Renegades will find a way to capitalize it. And that's going to be how they turn this thing into a victory, but a very short one with 3 points or less, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point. And hopefully the Renegades can learn from this game and go forth. And, well, maybe the Panthers might surprise us and go to 5-2 and actually be the road favorites and come out with a dub.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
And now we get to the Mother's Day games. First on tap at noon, it will be the Roughnecks, who are surprising folks. And now they're 3-3, and they travel to Birmingham to play the inconsistent but still pretty good at the moment Stallions, who are 4-2. ABC and ESPN Plus will carry that game, and the Stallions are favored by 5.5. Who do you have in this game?
The Roughnecks have won 3 straight games, Cole, and the momentum is on their side. And the Stallions have looked like dumpster Pelicans at certain points in this year, especially with how they played against the Showboats. You would not have thought the Showboats, who had lost 4 straight games, would have came in and beat this team.
Right.
I didn't, and I didn't call it. This was the last game that I think we predicted before you had to go on holiday.
It was
the past couple weeks. So that we didn't see that happening, and we were both wrong. We both thought, oh yeah, Stein's gonna wipe the floor with this team, and no, we were both wrong. I mean, and now looking at how it's been the past couple of weeks, I think that there's a good chance that this Roughnecks team, the momentum is on the side of these two losing teams, the Showboats and the Roughnecks. And the Roughnecks more so because they've won 3 straight games. And if the Showboats can do it, why can't the Roughnecks, who have won 3 straight games, and especially against the caliber of teams they've done it against? Mm-hmm. So, for me, I want to have the feel-good story here. I want to. And this is in your place. This is Houston. This is, you got the Texans playing well, and for you to have this 0-3, I was ready to write them off. And I will sit here and say I was wrong, okay? They have a chance. At 3-3, you have a chance. You can't really lose much more. You got to pretty much win it out, or maybe lose 1 at most 2 more games, and hope that 5-5 is good enough. But if you can finish this year 6-4, that's respectable and playoff worthy. Okay, so for this, even though Birmingham is favored, their defense has still been playing decent, but their offense has been pretty spotty. And Cookus, he came in and he did what he did last week, and that was nice. But you and I talked about how this team has not been doing very well in the running game this year. The Stallions have not. And the one part about the defense on the Roughneck side, they are not good when it comes to the pass, which is why they've given up 20 points in games. But they are good when it comes to their rushing defense and putting pressure on the opposing team's front line. If they play this well from start to finish, even though I said earlier, we were talking about upsets of the week, with the Renegades, Panthers, I think this could be the legitimate case for upset of the week.
I agree with you. I think the case is good and the case can be made, but I'm with you. It's like, man, I want the feel good story so bad. I really do. But I just get the feeling the Stallions will probably find a way to win this game. And the better story would be the Roughnecks go to Birmingham and they beat the defending champs. That would be the better story. But I'm not sure the Roughnecks are ready to actually beat a team, at least that's defensively as solid as the Stallions yet. But there is hope. I mean, the Showboats did, so the possibility for the Roughnecks to do so is there. But we'll see. But I think I'm going in this game. Of course, I'm rooting for the Roughnecks, but I'm going for the Stallions in winning this game. But it's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be close.
Even if my pick's wrong, because I want to side with you on this one, for the sake of the momentum, I'm gonna stand firm and say the Roughnecks are gonna win. But unfortunately, they probably will go and lose, like you said, to the Stallions. But I'm going with the feel-good story on this one. I have to. I'm going to ride the wave because I wasn't riding it soon enough. I'm picking the Roughnecks here.
All right. So, speaking of Roughnecks, I'm going for the Stallions. But we're both rooting for the feel-good story, though.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
And we come to the second Mother's Day game. The Battlehawks at 4-2. They travel to Memphis, which isn't too far from St. Louis. Only a 2-hour drive there to play the Showboats. They are 1-5, but the record is very misleading. ESPN and ESPN Plus will carry this game. 3 p.m. is the kickoff. Opening kickoff, I should say. And the Battlehawks are 7.5-point faves. Who do you have in this game, sir?
It's a tough one. This is tough, especially when you think about the momentum for the Memphis Showboats getting their first win of the year. But they're in there at home. You would want to say that they had the momentum on their side. But when you're facing a team like the Battlehawks, even though it was ugly last week against the Renegades, and we clicked the bowling shoe ugly several times earlier in this show, we weren't fans of it. But you have to tip your cap to the fact that this team finds ways to win games, and they are 4-2 for a reason. I mean, it says it right here. They're 4-2, just like the Defenders and just like the Stallions. Out of these three teams that have the best record in the league, even though going into week 6, I was saying that the Defenders were the best team in the league. It's not pretty. It's sometimes ugly, like truly ugly. But the Battlehawks are the tough team right now. You got them. You got the Panthers as well. There's teams. They just find ways to win, whether you want to do it, whether you want them to or not. Max Duggan has been making moves out there as the quarterback position for them. And, even though he didn't really have that great of a week last week statistically because of the team that he was facing, he's done a pretty decent job taking over for AJ McCarron. Taking over for AJ McCarron. I had a brain fart for a second, but yes, AJ McCarron, he took over for him, and someone who had success with that team leading up to Max Duggan coming in. He didn't win championship or anything, but he still had decent success with the team. And for him to come in, and even though it wasn't pretty, the team found a way to win. They've been finding ways to win 4 out of 6 games. I got to give it to this team. They're going to find a way to win this on the road, but I think that Memphis keeps it interesting. I really think that they do, based on what we've seen, because they're going to be coming off of this game right here where they just played the Roughnecks. And just like we were talking about earlier, where I thought that the Roughnecks playing a type of game like this, a very close competitive game, will tune them up for this upcoming week. I feel the same way about the Showboats coming into this game at home against the Battlehawks. They lose this game, the Battlehawks will win on the road, but it's going to be close. I will not be surprised if you have this in the category for game of the week next week.
I'm with you on that too. And I'm going Battlehawks, but I'm going Battlehawks 5 points or less, because I think the Showboats are going to compete with the Battlehawks. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Showboats beat them personally.
I like Dresser Wynn. He's doing really good at quarterback, and even in the loss this week, he still did pretty good.
He looked really good
earlier. Yeah.
He looked good last week. He definitely did his thing the week before, and I can see him continue it. And would I be surprised if the Showboats beat the Battlehawks? No. I think the Battlehawks though are just a little bit better, not much, just a little bit better. And again, 4 or 5 points or less. I don't see this being. I see this being within a touchdown. I would not be surprised if it's even like 3 or 2 or 1 point of a victory for the Battlehawks. But this is going to be close, and I agree with you. I think this is the best game of the week contender of the 4. All right. Well, that concludes the 2-minute drill, but there's still more. Stay tuned.
Oh yeah, it's that time for the snowflake.
Oh, let the snow fall. I know we're in May, but it is always time to award a snowflake. And I get a feeling with Drew, this is going to be entertaining. I'm looking forward to seeing what yours is. Drew, the floor is yours.
Cole, you have discussed this person on many occasions, and I hope that I don't butcher the awesome nickname that you have for him. But I have to give my snowflake of the week this week to Gary Joe. Because just look at the stupid looks on his face this picture displays, because that's the type of looks that were on his face throughout this offseason leading up to the trade for one Mr. Pickens and George. Pickens coming for the Pickens didn't pick great because you were basically held hostage. Your picks were held hostage. You were made to wait until after the draft. They didn't even think that your picks were worthy enough to have the 2025 third-round pick or fifth-round pick of this year and third in next year's draft, whatever. They made you wait for that sure, straight compensatory pick that you sent over in that 3rd round draft pick for 2026 and the 5th round pick for 2027 with the stupid look on your face while you were making these draft moves. You were still thinking about, you had your guy that you were going to get. My name's Jerome, and I'm going to take this guy right here. His name's George Pickens, and he's diva just like C.D. Lamb. They don't want to ruin their locker room over there, Pittsburgh. They don't want to pay $50 million a year between 2 wide receivers. But I sure will. I like ruining my team because my name's Gerald, and I'm going to trade for all the divas out here. That's Gerald. That's how it seems. Because if the Steelers are smart enough to not want to pay 2 receivers who are in the top 10 of the league, I mean, their receiving numbers say it all, Cole. They really do.
Mhm.
Whether we want to admit it or not, C.D. Lamb is still in top caliber shape for wide receivers of the league. All right. And you go and trade for another person who thinks that he is number 1 in the locker room for wide receivers.
Mm.
That's not the case when the Steelers send him out the door because they viewed DK Metcalf as their number 1 guy. And C.D. Lamb has been Dak Prescott's number 1 guy. You can't truly have a 1A and a 1B in football when it comes to wide receivers because they want the ball too much.
Mm-hmm.
Until they get older in their career and get humbled by the fact of father time catching up to them, and they have little time left to finally get their first ring, like the case and Stephon Diggs. All right? So now you have this situation. You have George Pickens, who's playing in his final year of his rookie deal, as we discussed earlier. He's going to want the ball. CeeDee Lamb's going to want the ball. You got Dak coming back from an injury. They're going to be trying to find their chemistry throughout this offseason. And then when they get to when it matters most, they're going to have things blow up at some point in this season, and it's all going to be based on targets. And Jerome didn't think about that because had he moved CeeDee Lamb beforehand or made him part of a package deal, trade with 3 teams, have 3 teams involved with the trade just like they do in NBA, okay? Even hockey does it. Other teams do it. Other sports do it. Other leagues do it. You know what I'm talking about. But Jerome apparently doesn't know because this is coming up on year 30 of missing the NFC Championship. And you know who else is a fan of this franchise known as the Dallas Cowboys?
Okay. Oh,
And he
Lord.
is not going to like the fact that Jerome is running his team into the ground with that whimsical look on his face in the top right-hand corner. Okay. Jerome made the wrong move because DK was traded for because the Steelers knew that Pickens' time is coming to an end, and they found their replacement. But all the Cowboy fans are going to be saying at the end of this upcoming season is,
What?
why?
What?
And why?
What?
This is not this.
That was a lie.
Contradiction to myself because Jerome just did because he can't get any type of general manager moves correct when it comes to trading for a player here or trading for a player there to the point to where I am
Let me talk to you.
if you're still listening because Jerome is not doing the right things for his team, which is why we gladfully click this whenever we can.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Because that's all we see when this team hits the field. Whether it's by health or by in health, I say this in quotations for
Mhm.
this. I'm not talking necessarily about physical health. You could be mental health. And if you have two divas that can't coexist in a locker room because they want the ball, and you have a diva and a quarterback that wants to be there and not be passed up on, and Dak Prescott, you got too much going on there. I think it's going to be a worse situation with those two wide receivers and Dak Prescott leading the charge than it could have been if you had Captain Ayahuasca and Pickens and DK Metcalf, even though that could have been a dumpster fire too. I don't think this is going to work out necessarily the way that everyone thinks it will, outside of you and me on this show, because there's a lot of people out there that think this is going to turn them into playoff contenders, but not when Terrell is calling the shot. Until they make him step down fully from his GM duties and have no bearing on any type of moves, this team will not, and I repeat, will not be a success story out here on these football fields. And with that, my rant is over and I rest my case.
I love that. And I agree with you. I think Gerard was absolutely off his rocker in thinking that this was a move they needed to make. I'm like, okay, you could have drafted a wide receiver and take care of that issue. There's other needs. There's other needs that you have, both on offense and defense, that you could have fulfilled, but you went for the sexy pick once again, or the sexy trade once again. And I think you're going to whiff mightily. Oh my gosh. Why? Well, it's time for a snowflake to be rewarded from this end. And look, I can't complain about Gerald. I mean, he deserves it because he's become the worst GM in the last decade. And it's sad because he actually knows the sport, but with the moves he's making, he's proven that he doesn't. We're not talking about him. No. Mine happens to be the now former kicker for the Baltimore Ravens, one Mr. Justin Tucker. And the reason being, well, it looks like the chickens are beginning to come home to roost. Now, there was talk about him doing things very similar to one Deshaun Watson, and this actually started back in February. Now, to brief you up on what he did or allegedly did, he has multiple sexual misconduct allegations levied against him. But back in February, he said that they were so shocking and heartbreaking that he did not do this. Now, the Baltimore Banner reported that there was a total of 16 masseuses who accused Tucker of inappropriate sexual behavior in alleged incidents between 2012 and 2016. And to this moment, he still vehemently denies the allegations. I wanted to see how the team was going to move from that point, because I had one eye on the situation. I was all right. So this is in February. I want to see how the Ravens move on or move forward, knowing this. And the way they move will prove to me the guilt or the innocence of one Mr. Tucker. Well, I saw what they did. They decided to draft a kicker in this year's NFL draft. And so they drafted said kicker. And then they decided to give one Mr. Tucker his walking papers. Now, mind you, that let's get this understood. Now, you're probably saying, well, this is just a regular kicker. But those who are in the know, those who are fans of the sport, like Drew and myself are, and like some in the tribe are as well, you all know that as recently as 2024, we were talking about him being the greatest kicker in terms of accuracy of all time.
Yes.
And we are 2 years removed from him kicking a 66-yard field goal to end a game. So this isn't a guy that's on his way out in terms of talent. Now, he may be on his way down because he had a subpar 2024, but this is a guy who has a really good leg, and has been historically accurate. But the drafting of another kicker, that is when I said, okay, I think these allegations have more legs than the public or even Justin is letting on. And the reason being, if anybody's going to draft a kicker, normally if you do draft one, it's a telltale sign of either one, you feel as though your special teams needs a boost right then and there, or two, you don't like the kicker that you currently have. But in the drafting of one Tyler Loop, you have basically said, at least to me, that the most accurate kicker in NFL history is too much trouble than he's worth to keep on your team. And so, Mr. Tucker, you got to deal with that, my man. You got to deal with that. Now, your old team is giving you cover because your former GM is saying that this was a football decision and it was an incredibly difficult one to make. And this was one that you had to consider it being tough. But considering the current roster, the GM, Eric DeCosta, said that they had to release you. Well, I know that you were on the wrong side of 30. And I know you've been on the team since 2012. And what hurts even worse to me, you're a former Texas Longhorn, which, of course, I have an affinity for University of Texas. But, sir, own up to your mistake. Whether you actually weren't being egregious to the women or not, own up to the error, because there's some error here. Because no NFL team that I know of will have a leg like yours, and it being said by media types, NFL personnel, and the team alike, players, non-kickers, players, that you are the most accurate kicker in the history of the league. The league is now a century in age. The most accurate kicker in the league, and you get released. Something's wrong with that picture. So you got to clean house, my friend. And I know these are alleged, but the Ravens are saying alleged. Something stinks in the Tucker house. And unfortunately, that's you, my friend. I hate that for you, man. I really do. But when the team drafts a kicker and they think that your ways of going about it is wrong and it's too much heat on the team, that's when you got to reassess things, my man. Chicks are coming home to roost. You got to own that and clean that house up.
Sucks to be Justin Tucker right now.
Yeah,
I mean, it really does. But I mean, it sucked to be how he was displaying himself in an unprofessional manner, because myself is one, who's I've had to go have like body work done because I used to do physical work, like carrying refrigerators.
Yeah.
So on a regular basis, I'd go get, massages or chiropractic work done. You gotta be professional, man.
Of course.
They have towels and stuff. It's a whole setup. You got to respect the rules. And apparently Justin Tucker was not respecting the rules. And I don't care, if we continue to do this at the same level we're at, or get to prime time, they will never be anybody that will come after me and say that I did anything like Justin Tucker, man. So it's you can't behave like that. And this is all based on behaviors from, you look at Deshaun Watson and all that, you would have thought that he would have learned, like, this is going to come to surface.
Right.
And maybe that's why he hasn't been playing all that well over the past, year and a half, 2 years. I mean, he's been on a decline over the past 3 or 4 seasons as far as statistics, but this was his first really bad year. I think
last year was his first bad year. Yeah,
the limelight was just too bad for him. I mean, too tough for him because he was, they were talking about certain things back then. It just wasn't as highly publicized. So
it's a shame, man. It's a shame. And Dante says, look, it's crazy, man, because kickers are people too. And it's funny how low draft value they are, but often become a major part of the team and city.
Yes.
But no means no. Act like a gentleman at all times. I cannot agree with that anymore. I 100% am on board with that statement, bro. Yes, no means no, and you got to be a gentleman out here. there's no two ways around it. There's no other ifs, ands, or buts that you could place on it. No addendums, no exceptions. Yeah, and unfortunately, Justin didn't act like that gentleman he needed to be. Well, sorry for you, bro. But Tyler Loop, welcome to the NFL. You got to replace that. Whew. Most accurate kicker in NFL history. Whew. Man, that's a hard predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it.
Man, I really did have a ball on this episode. It's unfortunate we have come to an end to episode 83 of Total Football Talk, but this is the part of the show where we give our post game, where it's the final thoughts of the week that was, and maybe even some things to come as well if we so desire. And Drew, with your final thoughts, what's yours?
This has been, an interesting week with the whole Justin Tucker situation, getting a little bit more out there. Think of the Shedeur Sanders situation we covered, talking about the craziness of lawsuits. And last week, we're talking about another situation that had to do with a lawsuit and how wild that was. Well, here it is. Busted for bumping uglies unethically. Yeah, it's not, these topics we've had over the course of the past 7 days, have been pretty wild. Really had. When you think about the lawsuits and the things that are happening out here, I'm just glad we still have football that's going on in this time, for myself, take my mind off something by being able to watch a little football sometimes, and, NFL will be here before you know it. Still have the drama out there. We covered some things within Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff today, but still at a deadlock on that. Kirk Cousins is still an Atlanta Falcon. Aaron Rodgers is still undecided. But I think we got a pretty good NFL season shaping up. Just as I said a few weeks back, I'm really excited to see how this rookie class does, and especially, for the running back that was selected by the New England Patriots in the second round, who's a local kid, Travion Henderson. There's been some hype over the last few weeks since that draft. So, especially here locally, because he's a local kid, so that's going to be cool to see how that goes. But we will have a pretty cool 2025 season, in my opinion, for all of you out there who are fans of the league itself. Just not Cowboy fans, I don't believe. I don't think the Pickens trade is going to be in your favor this year, and we shall see how that pans out. But there was one thing that I forgot to talk about earlier that I want to bring up that is not even football related.
Lord.
That I want to make sure I get on out here, because people who are watching this right now are more than likely watching basketball, because basketball is in its prime playoffs, where we're about to get to the conference finals, and then of course the NBA finals here very soon. But there's one person who needs to have some light shed on them, and that person is my selection for an honorable mention for the Snowflake of the Week. And this person right here, yes, he's helped lead the Knicks to 2 consecutive wins, and they will be playing game 3 tomorrow at 3:30, and they will be doing it in New York. But this person, he deserves to be the honorable mention of the Snowflake because of his over excessive flops. He is my honorable mention this week for the flop king, Jalen Brunson. aka La Floppy 2.0. His over-excessive flops should be punishable by eating Lunchables on the bench and sitting over to the side and not being allowed to participate during a one-game suspension because he spends more time on the floor like he is in the far right. He spends just as much time with that stupid look on his face in the far left pretending that he just got fouled. All he does is jump up in the air and bounce off players like a bumper car at the state fair and fall backwards while throwing the ball up in the air and hoping to get the 3-point foul play, or if his feet were just inside, the 2-point foul shot play. And I'm telling you, man, that stupid look in the middle of his face, looking and pointing like I should get the foul with the knockoff Lil Bow Wow haircut from 1999. I'm telling you, man, the Flop King. And they get it by watching the man everyone praises as
Okay.
and how he flopped back in the day. Over excessive flops he watched when he was just eating Lunchables in middle school, and he should have to be punished again by eating the Lunchables on the bench during a benched game with that stupid look on his face, flopping all over the place. 2.0 La Floppy Lunchables, make it happen. That's my final take that I wanted to bring up here during the post game, because I didn't get to bring it up earlier because I forgot. And I'm sorry. What? I said I'm sorry. I'm trying, but all I can do out here is tell you how much this guy is a flop king.
Oh my gosh. You had to talk about Jalen Brunson. La Floppe. Oh my gosh.
We've been catching up from the past 2 weeks. I had to bring the shenanigery at its finest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with you, Dante. No question. I had to deal with him being a Rockets fan for 8 years. Yes, I agree. Oh my goodness.
You think he's worse than Jalen Brunson? Historically.
Not now. Not now.
Historically,
yes, but not now.
Was Harden worse than the flop, though?
No. He wasn't.
So we can at least all agree that this was all started by
Okay. Nice setup. Goodness gracious. Set up by Yoke. Oh, yes, Dante. Yeah, James Harden is still hard to watch for me. I it's funny. We now, and it's like what Drew said. We are in the middle of the NBA playoff season. The conference semifinals has just started. Now we're getting into the middle part of it, and that's as interesting and fun. Last weekend was the Kentucky Derby. That, of course, is interesting and fun. We are now in the second full month of the Major League Baseball season. That's always great. We're in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. But I do find it to be interesting that even with all of that, the talk is still football. And yeah, I mean, with certain games in basketball, it's talked about, and the fact that WBA is starting next week, all of that is great too. But the story of seeing Shedeur Sanders getting drafted in the 5th round, I find that to be more interesting than everything else that's going on, because it's been something that I didn't think we would actually talk about. And I say this not the show, I mean as fans, because the thought pattern that I had was, all right, so this guy is probably going to be the second or third quarterback taken off the board, which means it's going to be a ho-hum draft. And because of him, it was not. And because of him, it making it not a ho-hum draft, it made us talk more about football, the NFL, and how how we evaluate talent and how scouts view things, and should there be a change in how evaluations are done. And it's interesting that these conversations are being had because of a talent that people did not think should have slipped 4 rounds, but it's being discussed. And yes, there was a slight discussion of racism when it came to Shedeur Sanders, but I politely, I politely, and I mean politely and bluntly, said to them, I live in the city who had the first overall draft pick, and that was Cam Ward. Last I checked, the melanin is a little on the brown side. So, no, this was not a racism thing. That had to do with that particular person and maybe his family members, but it had nothing to do with the skin color, because talent is talent. And I don't care what of the 32 teams in the NFL say, they will sign talent. But that came on the throes of the Giants picking Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders. And I'm thinking, well, I get why they probably went with Jackson Dart, because for those who don't know, he played in the SEC and he was SEC Ole Miss. Played in the SEC and SEC for the past at least 20 years. Has been considered the toughest college football conference in America. And so you have these evaluators, these scouts, and these executives that will look at talents like a Jackson Dart and say, okay, he's battle tested, battle hardened. So he's gotten a taste of what we delivered in NFL. He might be someone we should pick up. And Shedeur, yeah, went to the HBCU for a couple of years, Jackson State, and he started for Colorado a couple of years, which they were in the Pac-12 his first year, the Big 12 his second year. And yeah, I mean, you could say that he was battle hardened to a degree, but again, the Southeastern Conference is considered the toughest conference in America. Any person getting drafted there or the Big Ten, which I think is the second toughest one, was going to get the nod unless you were head and shoulders above everybody like Cam Ward was at the University of Miami. But we got to be careful in labeling things that are collusion or racist in tendency, because some people will take that and run with it. The thing is, when it comes to a talent like a Shedeur Sanders, you can't take and run with it. You have to look at all of the sides that are available. And then you can come with a consensus and an analysis that is just of him, just of the situation. So just like probably the NFL scouting process needs to be tweaked and the evaluation process needs to be tinkered, let us, as fans, as analysts, as journalists, actually tweak a little bit on our own and not just run with a narrative. Look at the situation for all it presents before you run with whatever narrative that you want to put forth as your opinion. Remember, it can't be racism if the very first player overall played quarterback and will be playing quarterback in the future. Sorry for you, but I'm not sorry for Shedeur, because I think he'll take care of himself just fine. The only question for him is, will he be able to climb up that roster chart and be the starting quarterback come September? Who knows? But he has to climb over, good Lord, Dylan Gabriel, Deshaun Watson, and Joe Flacco to do so. Hello to you, Shedeur.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
Any thoughts you have, sir, before we let the tribe go?
That was well said. Within that, definitely putting a bow on that situation, because it's like you're grasping at straw. You've said it several times before. Like with that, when people bring color into it, especially when it comes to this situation, it's like you're just grasping at straws. You're looking for something to complain about because you feel entitled to something that should have gone one way, but it didn't. And
Right.
at the same time, you can't really complain about what's done is done at this point. I just think that whole scenario is absolutely wild. And, once we get to this season, we'll have to let the play speak for itself. We should not see him on the field this year. I don't feel like we should see him on the field. I don't think he's ready for it. I mean, that's why they got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. If anybody's going to get thrown to the wolves, let's just go ahead and get that over with.
It'll be him.
It'll get, it'll be like you said, it'll be him. Let's get that over with. And then hopefully the team can rally around Joe Flacco, do something like they did a few years back. But I don't see that being possible. But it just depends. I mean, we could be wrong. We could be completely wrong with the situation. He could be the Jaden Daniels for this franchise. But I don't see it, because the way Jaden Daniels carried himself in college and today is completely different than what Shedeur Sanders did. And there's a reason why he was drafted number 2 overall and within the top 3 of his previous class, and Shedeur slipped. I don't agree that he should have slipped to the 5th round. I think he might have slipped a little bit too much. I wouldn't have been mad with the 2nd or 3rd round pick, a day 2 pick, but
I wouldn't have either.
He didn't deserve to be a day 3 round, a 5th round pick. And Shiloh, didn't even get drafted. The Bucs picked him up. I'm guessing you probably covered that because I saw the comment earlier when I had to step away for a minute. But the Bucs comment, the Bucs picked him up. Signed him to the to the team. But I remember seeing Six saying something about the he'll be in the draft. But it's like, no, he's already signed. And with another team, but his road will be harder. But regardless, those kids have other options outside of football, so they're going to be fine. They're set for life, regardless if it's within the game of professional football or on the outside somehow. So they have nothing to worry about. But yeah, great way to end that with your post game. And 83 has definitely been a fun one. I'm looking forward to 84 already.
Yeah, I am too. And thank you for making this fun. It's been good to return and sit alongside you yet again. It feels comfortable. I like this. Now, if you want to follow my brother Drew, all you have to do is go into the following social media homes that he has. Search up _media Instagram, search up _media for X, the _ the Sir _Sertoba on TikTok, and on YouTube at youtube.com/Sertoba Media. And if you want to follow yours truly, all you do is go on to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That is flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson.
Do less work.
Well, that does it for this episode of Total Football Talk. We thank you for liking, we thank you for sharing, we thank you for subscribing, and we thank you for hitting that notification bell so you can catch all content that emanates from the Sertoba Media YouTube channel or the Coleman Media YouTube channel as well. And we definitely agree with the sentiments here that Dante put forth. He says, look, I know this is random, but I find it disturbing that a lot of youth refer to their mothers as spawn. But come on, man. Have more respect. Happy Mother's Day or Mommy's Day to all you guys with women, with kids in your lives. And I'll add on to it with mothers in your lives as well.
No, this isn't Halo. We're not playing Halo, the original Halo from Xbox. We're not just spawning on in. Okay? Like that. Come on, kids. What is going on? What are they putting in the Cocoa Puffs now, Cole? I know we're having an extended special edition today, but what is going on with these kids?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But yes, I'm sure I'm sure I'm speaking for Drew when I say I hope his mother, I definitely hope yours out there, and definitely I hope mine has a wonderful, great, and in luxurious Mother's Day, because you put up with a lot and you still love us. So that right there is statement in and of itself. So happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there, and all of the women football fans out there. Happy Mother's Day to you as well.
Happy Mother's Day. Absolutely. Because without you, we would not.
It wouldn't be us.
No. You deserve your day. Yes, you
Yes, you most certainly deserve your day. For Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say, imparting as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And as always, remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
Without a doubt, stay safe out here in these streets.
See you.